G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now if you love this video like I love you, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy the bloody good content. Posted by user UnfairFather123, titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my daughter go on her 18th birthday trip in December? Some context is required for this issue. My daughter, 17 female, and her friends planned a trip to go to Japan during her Christmas break to celebrate her 18th birthday. She had been planning this for the last 2 years. I decided as her present, I would pay for all her expenses, flights, hotel, activities, etc. Moving on to the incident, I have an autistic 9-year-old son. Quarantine has been really hard for him, and he's been struggling a lot. One thing he loves to do is jigsaw puzzles. We decided to get him 10,000-piece jigsaw as a small gift for him to complete. He has a table in his room which he laid everything out and spent almost a month on this puzzle. A few days ago, he completed the puzzle and was just so happy and proud of himself. He FaceTimed his grandparents and other relatives just to show them his hard work. Anyways, later during the day, I hear him scream, and I rush upstairs to see him bent over his puzzle, which was now in pieces on the floor, and my daughter filming on her phone. Long story short is that there is a TikTok trend of siblings throwing jigsaw puzzles on the floor. My daughter decided to film one and went into his room and shoved the puzzle off his desk and recorded his reaction. My son was inconsolable, and it took us almost 3 hours to calm him down. However, he is still so upset. I was furious with my daughter, and we had a long talk. No matter what excuses she gives, her actions were completely malicious. She did apologize to her brother. However, I don't understand what positive outcome she saw from this. After some time, I decided her punishment would be that she would not be allowed to go on this trip. I told her that I would not pay for her trip and cancelled her flight and hotel reservations. She started crying and begging me to reconsider, but I told her that I already cancelled everything. I told her she was too old for this type of horrible behavior and she had to deal with the consequences of her actions. She packed her stuff and left to her mother's house, my ex-wife. I later got a call from her mother saying that I was a horrible parent and that my punishment was just an overreaction. I'm starting to think maybe I did overreact, considering she had been begging for a girls' trip for the past 2 years. Yet she decided a few likes was more important than her brother's feelings. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? If we were to look at this situation this time last year, very much you can be like, yeah, you're the a-hole. How could you do that? But now we gotta consider TikTok has just been pulled from everywhere and it's pretty much becoming irrelevant. The current situation going on in the world, and I guess as an extension of that, her safety. So I'd say it's a mixed bag of everyone sucks here obviously, but she sucks even more so now because the TikTok attention she'll be getting is just wiped off the face of the earth. Like there's not even a chance of that making an impact because no one's on there anymore to be looking at it. So because of that, she sucks even more than before. So I'd say everyone sucks here, with her sucking a bit more. It's probably in her best interest not to go to Japan in December. But it definitely feels like a little bit of an overreaction to just pull it all out. Everyone sucks here. This punishment doesn't really match this crime. You should have made her sit down and completely fix the puzzle, and maybe grounding or something. It's not about the puzzle. It's about being maliciously cruel to her autistic brother, recording it, and posting it on social media for likes. Who the hell does that? Edit, not the a-hole. I agree, it seems very cruel and just for some likes on social media. Yep, she's 17. She knows better. A 17-year-old with average intelligence should know. Everyone sucks here. What she did was horrible, but your punishment is only going to make her resent you and her brother more. There's nothing to learn from it. A better punishment would have been something that teaches her empathy. Maybe doing something for her brother, in addition to fixing the puzzle, which should be a given. Or you could make her do some research on autism and make her write a 5-page essay about why what she did was not only mean, but especially upsetting for her brother. Punishments should always be learning experiences. She harassed her autistic 9-year-old brother so she could put it on the internet. The punishment was entirely appropriate. Screw her if she doesn't learn from it, not the a-hole. You're one of those that can't see the forest because of the trees. If the punishment doesn't mean anything, she'll reoffend in other ways many other times. She needs to be punished in a way she'll learn from it, and maybe that does include cancelling the trip as long as it's framed in a way that she learns from her cruelty. Not the a-hole. Your daughter is old enough to know better. You're right, her actions were needlessly malicious and all to satisfy a TikTok trend? Seriously? Being that this is a massive present though, maybe there's a way she can earn this privilege back between now and then in a way that you see fit. Most other comments here say not the a-hole. I guess at the end of the day it's your own personal interpretation of this situation. Posted by user DFG123U. Titled, Am I the a-hole for supporting my wife after my daughter publicly exposed her diary which had quote-unquote cruel comments? I have been remarried for a year now to my wife. I have a 15-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son from my first marriage. I also have a 15-year-old stepdaughter. My wife has always gotten along with my children very well and has gone above and beyond to integrate our families. And although at first my daughter was very standoffish to my wife was eventually able to bond with her. Only then did we get married. A few weeks ago, my daughter found my wife's diary that she had been writing to when we went to marital counseling before we got married. Both our first marriages were terrible, so we were determined to do it right. I was also given a diary. My daughter then proceeded to read everything and even take photographs of certain pages. She then posted the photographs on Facebook and called my wife a bunch of cruel names. My wife had written a few things about how she wished I didn't have kids before we met, so we could have had less issues dealing with my ex. She also said how she hated that my daughter had picked up so many bad traits from my ex. And the last thing related to my kids was that she said my ex was a terrible mother for weaponizing her kids. I admit I was taken aback and upset that my wife had written these things because I knew my kids would be hurt. But this was also a personal diary as part of a therapy exercise, and the diary has been hidden in our closet. My daughter even posted some very sensitive information about my wife dealing with her father who was an alcoholic. My wife is inconsolable. A lot of my family and friends have turned on my wife because they think what she wrote was terrible. I disagree. She wrote things that she was concerned would affect our marriage, and the counseling actually helped us deal with having stepchildren. And it's not like I shared the same opinion about my ex. I'm just so defeated. My daughter will no longer see me if my wife is around and won't step foot in our house. My son is following her lead. My wife has already apologized several times. My ex has said that she will be starting the process to reduce my custody and sue for defamation. I know she won't win the defamation case, but I feel like custody will indeed switch. I'm very stressed out. My daughter refused to take down the diary pages and insists she's in the right. I have taken my wife's side in all this. Am I the a-hole? My entire family has been blown up. Oh my god, even I'm stressed out reading this. Dear Jesus. This is a very emotional reaction from a 15-year-old leading her 11-year-old brother along. You are definitely not in the right headspace at 15 years old, in the middle of a divorce and having to, come together with another family that your father's side is on. So I can definitely empathize with where the 15-year-old girl is coming from emotionally. I feel like a lot of us have been through situations similar. And this was a huge mistake by that 15-year-old, an absolutely damaging mistake, a very damaging mistake. It was very much the wrong thing to post that online. Those are private thoughts, and it's okay to have those thoughts, but they're definitely things that you keep to yourself. And what's the alternative to, the diary? What is it? Not get help? Not go to counseling? Not get therapy? Is that a world that we want people to live in, that they're scared to even write down their feelings and have a therapist help them out through these family situations? If I was those two stuck in the middle of all this right now, I would be feeling very defeated, and I can imagine that they're very upset. Like, what do you even do right now? You have like 7 years max before things, I'd say, start cooling down? That's just a terrible situation. I don't think that OP is the a-hole. You're definitely not the a-hole. You did the right thing, and now it's up to them to come to their senses. Not the a-hole. Your daughter is old enough to know not to read someone's diary. I really feel for you, mate. You're in a no-win situation. What my daughter did was very wrong, but I don't know how to make her unread the words she read. And with her not even coming to see me or have a proper conversation, I don't know how to even try and fix this. You can't. Her own decisions here were very, very, very wrong. At 15, she is definitely old enough to know better than to go snooping through someone else's belongings, and especially something as personal as a diary. But at 15, she also doesn't have the emotional maturity to handle what she's read. I mean, she read some downright awful crap about herself. And yes, your wife wrote it as a part of her therapy, and that's valid, but it's also valid that regardless of how the cat got out of the bag, your children were deeply hurt by it. Something with things like wishing your stepchildren never existed and that you hate that your stepdaughter shares traits with her mother is something that probably should have been better protected from prying eyes than simply being hidden in a closet. That by no means excuses your daughter's behavior though. What awful crap did she read about herself? That she has flaws relating to her mother? That the step-parent is iffy on the idea of stepchildren? None of this is news. None of this is shocking. None of this is awful crap. Not the a-hole, and neither is OP's wife. The daughter is not even an a-hole for reading the diary or being upset, but the daughter is an a-hole for making this whole situation blow up. She needs a chill pill, or 3. The a-holes here are the daughter and the ex, not to mention that the ex's defamation suit will likely be thrown out in court. The writing was published by her own daughter without permission from someone's diary, meaning that this being written down wasn't making rounds in public circles, it wasn't impacting the ex's career, nothing. OP's wife may be able to have a case for emotional distress, depending on their own decisions. Not the a-hole. This was a personal diary as a part of a therapy exercise. Sounds like the entire point of this was to vent unhealthy thoughts. If anyone ever read my diary, I don't think I'd have friends anymore. A diary for me is a place to express my irrational, illogical, and selfish thoughts, get them on a page, out of my head, and let them go. We all like to think we're good people, but reality is, we all have our dark, self-centered moments and deserve a safe place to confront them and deal with them. I can't imagine how the wife feels. I wonder how daughter would have felt if stepmom had read through the daughter's diary. Seriously, not the a-hole. My diary is absolutely hateful. It's the only place where I feel like I have absolute freedom to vent out my anger and frustration and to give words to the irrational emotions that arise out of, being a human who is conflicted over things and experiences the unfairness of the world. I am a step-parent, and it is hard. And the way I avoid taking out my insecurities and frustrations on my significant other and my stepdaughter is by getting them out of my head and by writing them down. Sometimes I read what I wrote, and I actually say to myself, wait, that doesn't make sense. That's not fair. Maybe you could have given XYZ the benefit of the doubt there, etc. But it takes working through my hard feelings sometimes to get a rational and loving response. Step-parenting is brutally hard, even in the best of circumstances. No one has a kid thinking that they want to raise them between two households with someone who probably dislikes them very much. No one wants to get in the middle of that conflict, but some of us fall in love and accept the package deal that is a single parent, and we try to make it work to the best of our abilities through resolving the inevitable conflicts that arise. It's a role that guarantees frustration. And if OP needs to get that frustration out by writing down the uncomfortable feelings she's having, she fudging deserves to have an outlet so that she can avoid blowing up that frustration on her loved ones. Diaries are meant to be private, period. If I picked up a notebook and realized that it was someone's diary, I would put it the hell down because invading a person's privacy like that is wrong. That is the lesson here, not you need to hide your things better. Sorry this one was so long, it just, it ignited a fire in me and I really wanted to talk about it. Posted by user Snoo85563, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she can't live with me because her reason for leaving her husband is dumb? So this happened pre-corona, around January. My sister hasn't spoken to me since then, and I honestly feel like she's dragging this out. All because I wasn't on her side during the separation. So what happened was, she attended a work event with her husband. It was a party, and everyone brought their spouses. She was pregnant, so she wasn't drinking. Her husband got pretty drunk, and she saw him and another co-worker flirt. Her exact words were, his hands were on her waist, and her hands were on his lower thighs. They were dancing really close and whispering to each other, smiling. My sister got upset and left the party in tears. She went home and packed her bags and called me, asking if she could stay with me and my wife for a few weeks as she gathered herself together as she was planning to divorce her husband. I told her to calm down, and she told me the full story, and I told her that she's overreacting and pregnancy hormones are why she's ticked. I don't consider this cheating, and it's something they can work through. To divorce over this? He was dancing with someone else. That's not that serious. Plus, you can't just crash at my house for a few weeks because your husband smiled at another woman. She started crying and said I'm a horrible brother and she wishes our parents weren't dead. I told her not to manipulate me and she blocked me. It's been so long and we haven't spoken. Her husband and I have talked, but she's not open for reconciliation. She's had the baby and she's separated from her husband, and she lets my wife and daughters come to see the baby, but not me. Was I really that wrong? If it was physical cheating, then I could have understood, but her story just isn't enough for such a drastic reaction, in my opinion. That brother is so dumb. Come on, the parents are dead and it's clear that the husband is cheating. Or at least, he's got that physical intimacy with someone that's not acceptable. You're supposed to be the rock in her hard times regardless of what's happening. You don't just call her out on it and call her husband out on it like that when she comes to you for help. You sit and you listen like a good person. You have some serious issues going on and you need to fix this, OP. What's wrong with you? You are the a-hole. Is this real? Your pregnant sister's husband was publicly getting handsy with another woman in front of all their friends, and you think that's not a reason to leave? You're the a-hole. Seriously, I cannot imagine how humiliating that must have been. And if that's what he's willing to do in front of his wife and everyone else, I highly doubt he's keeping it zipped when they're not around. This is exactly where I landed. He did this in front of her and all of their professional associates. What the hell is he doing when eyes aren't watching? You're the a-hole. You're not obligated to give her a place to stay, but she's well within her right to leave her husband for any reason, up and including, I didn't want to be married to him anymore. Blaming her choices on pregnancy hormones is really insulting. What's more, I bet dollars to donuts this was a straw that broke the camel's back situation, and your sister has been putting up with this bullcrap from her husband for a while. Came here to say this. OP is sexist as hell besides. The pregnancy hormones thing is just a way to discount a woman's feelings, and I doubt OP would feel the same way if his wife got drunk and fondled a strange man. Yes, the issue is my sister can no longer live with her husband. Do I want her to live with me for a while? Not, should I use my power over her to pressure her to stay with her husband because I consider men should be allowed to dance closely, whisper and laugh with women at their pregnant wives' work functions, even if it makes their wives miserable? I agree with this. Chalking it up to her hormones invalidates her very real feelings of betrayal, both by her husband and OP. Just a reinvention of the hysteria women were diagnosed with centuries before they had feelings and or ideas. She has every right to kick OP out of her life and protect her baby and herself from being gaslit again. Not to mention, it's not physical cheating is completely incorrect. They were dancing sexually. That's physical. Posted by user StinkySun68, titled, "Am I the a-hole for asking my ex to stop paying our son $15 to shower?" My ex and I share custody of our 13-year-old son, Dylan. Dylan has a hygiene problem typical of many boys his age, which is that he just doesn't shower. He doesn't seem to care if he stinks, and we've both told him many times that he needs to shower at least every other day. I noticed he was coming back from my ex-wife's place fully showered. My ex recently let me in on a little secret, which is that she'd been paying him $10 to shower. It sounded nuts, but I couldn't stand the stench anymore, so I paid him $10 to shower, and sure enough, he showered. This continued for a few weeks. Then my son told me he would no longer be showering for $10. He said the price has gone up to $15. I called my ex, who has been complying with the inflation, and paying him $15 to shower. Technically, there is no big difference between $10 and $15, but I feel ridiculous paying my son to wash himself. And also, I know his plan is to keep jacking up the price indefinitely. As of right now, I'm estimating he's making a good $80 a month off showering. I told my son I would no longer be paying him to shower at all if he keeps this up. He said fine. He would continue to shower at my ex-wife's and not shower in my house. I do not want to go back to the stench. I realized the only way to get around this was to prevent my ex-wife from continuing to be blackmailed, so I told her to please cease any and all payments to him for showering. This is where the problem began. She told me that she understands my concern, but she will still pay him to shower because I can't tell her how to raise her child, especially when it's something I've been doing until recently. Normally, I think she's a good mum, and I wouldn't criticize how she raises him, but she's literally allowing extortion, and it's gone way too far. If I continue to pay him to shower, I'm confident that before long, he'll be demanding $30 per shower. It's just too much. Am I the a-hole? I don't think anyone's really the a-hole per se. I think you guys are all just weak. You're just really weak on this 13-year-old. I think there are better ways to get him to shower than giving him $10 to $15 every time he does shower. You guys are giving in to his demands, and you're negotiating with terrorists, and we don't do that here. I know as humans we love to take the path of least resistance, but it's only to his detriment at this point. I know monetarily he's doing good, but that doesn't help you developmentally. And it's really just not good to allow bad habits like that to manifest. Who knows what he'll be like in 10 years from now, what that will turn into with his partners if he ever does get them. Is he going to force other people to pay him for common decency and respect? Where does the line stop? Who knows? I think everyone sucks here. Everyone sucks here. Your entire family is getting strong-armed by a 13-year-old, which, while objectively hilarious, speaks volumes as to your lack of parenting and co-parenting skills. Am I the only one who laughed out loud at his son bringing in $80 a month for showering? But also, only 8 showers in a whole month? If I were him, I'd be showering 3 times a day. Seriously, my big hustle was when my parents said they'd pay me $15 every time I mowed the lawn. So one week, I mowed it every day, and on Friday, told me they owed me $75. That was the first and last time I got away with it. They made the rule that I could only mow every other day. Did the same thing with cleaning the bathrooms. We had the cleanest bathrooms in the world because I was cleaning them twice a day and keeping a running tally for my parents. How long did it last? About 2 weeks, at which point I told them I had cleaned the bathroom 30 plus times and I would like my payout, and they decided the bathroom would be cleaned upon their request. Everyone sucks here. I am the mum of a teenage boy. I can't believe you both let him get away with demanding money to shower. I am laughing at your stupidity. There is so much stupidity in this thread, how can you even figure out who to laugh at? This is how I would have handled it as a parent. You will shower every other day at a minimum, or you will lose every single privilege until you do. No phone, no friends, no video games, no TV, no internet, nothing. You can sit in your room and do your homework or read and nothing else but school until you start showering. Then follow through. I always told my kids that if they got into a battle of wills with me, they would lose. They believed me, so I didn't have these problems. When I got divorced, my then 13-year-old was giving his mother and me a difficult time about getting up for school. His mother cried and cajoled and complained. Nothing worked for her. I simply handled it. I told him I would come wake him up the first time. If he didn't get up, I'd come back one more time. On the third time, he was getting a cup of ice-cold water from the fridge thrown in his face. Guess how many times I had to throw water in his face? 0, because he knew I would. Grow some stones and stand up to your manipulative 13-year-old, or he's going to become a manipulative adult, and it will be your and his mother's fault. There we go. My developmental comment came up finally. I was really hoping it would. Everyone sucks here. You keep saying things along the lines of, I can't do anything about him, he's bigger than me. If you're scared of your son physically assaulting you for parenting him in a way that doesn't involve bribery, you both need to go to family therapy. Posted by user ThrowawayS137, titled, Am I the a-hole for basically letting my sister eat something she was allergic to? My 22 female, younger sister, 19 female, is a notorious food thief. If you put something in the fridge, it usually doesn't take long for her to go in and eat it. It's super frustrating, as she ends up eating not only my treats/cakes, basically anything that I would look forward to eating, but also things that I've bought for work, so lunch items and drinks. 2 days ago, I was gifted a cake from a student. It was delicious and beautifully made. As usual, I had to think about where to keep my cake, as I knew once it was unattended, my sister would no doubt eat some or all of it. Then I realized the cake contained traces of nuts, something my sister is mildly allergic to. Normally, I put up little post-it notes on my food, which I normally find in the trash after my sister has eaten the item. This time though, I forgot about the note and put the cake in the fridge. Within the hour, I heard a commotion downstairs and found my sister having an allergic reaction to my cake. It was bad enough for her to break out in hives and her lips and tongue swelled. Now I'm getting blamed for 1, bringing home food that can cause my sister a reaction, 2, not clearly labeling the cake when everyone knows my sister eats everything in the fridge. I told my sister it's her fault, but my mum's blaming me because she knows I know what my sister likes, so that I should have kept it out of the fridge. Edit: I didn't intentionally not label the cake to let my sister know it contained nuts. My sister drives me crazy, but I wouldn't purposefully cause her a medical issue. I honestly forgot to. I put it in the fridge as it was hot, then got cold outside. Completely distracted, I forgot about it altogether until I heard the commotion of my sister's allergy. I'm gonna go with you're not the a-hole, OP. It's common decency to ask if you can have people's food that they've put in the fridge beforehand, and yes, you guys have allowed her and enabled her to do this over time, but it does sound like you have confronted her and she has just ignored you and doesn't care. Sounds like to me she has a food addiction of some sort, or she just has no respect for your family. And look, she almost died as a result of that. Well, if it isn't my old friends, the consequences of my actions. Maybe this will teach her to stop eating food that isn't hers. I think OP could have done better to put a post-it note on the food, but as they said, they got distracted, and that's no fault of their own. If she's that quick to jump on food, she has major issues. OP, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I know I'll get downvoted, but she's old enough to know she has an allergy and to not just eat unknown food willy-nilly. If you've labeled Sally's lunch don't eat, and she ignores it and eats anyway, I feel like a note saying Sally's cake has nuts wouldn't have stopped her. Now maybe she'll stop being so greedy and rude. Consider as well, if she had a job in a communal setting where a lunch fridge is shared and such, not only would co-workers be livid at this behavior, but also it really is her own fault for taking what's not hers, especially when there is an allergy present. What a maroon. Not the a-hole. OP replies, My sister's currently at uni, and she does steal from the communal fridge as well, typically milk and snacks, etc. Your sister is going to get herself killed. There are a lot of people in my family with serious nut allergies, and people have no idea how much food has trace amounts of nuts, especially pre-packaged food. If her allergy is that bad, she should stop putting every food item in sight in her mouth, or she may one day kill herself. Info. Does your sister have a developmental disorder or learning disorder? I mean, why should her rampant food theft be anyone's problem but her own? I get it if a 3-year-old can't remember the allergy issue, but at her age, unless something's off mentally, she should be able to. OP says, haha, no development problems. She is just a spoiled brat who gets upset if she doesn't get her way. She knows she's allergic, but it's very mild, so much so that she can eat foods that have the may contain traces of nuts on them. Reactions from the cake are once in a blue moon. Not the a-hole. When family blame you for this, point out that you can't be forced to label everything you bring home just because your sister has no self-control. And actually, it's a good thing if she gets a mild allergic flare-up now and then to teach her that she can't afford to do this. Haha, can't believe she's not allergic to herself with how nuts she is, but tss. Am I the a-hole for telling my son's girlfriend that she is stupid? I have 2 adult children. My daughter has a 5-year-old daughter, and my son's girlfriend is pregnant with their first child. I've always got the impression that she doesn't like me, but that's fine. I don't particularly like her either, but we're civil for my son's sake. I'm Brazilian, I grew up in Brazil, and I go back once or twice a year to visit family. I had both of my children over last night, and I mentioned that when it is safe to travel, I will be taking my granddaughter to Brazil for the first time. My son's girlfriend said that she doesn't want her child going with me in the future, which is fine. Her hypothetical child was never invited. Then she said she doesn't want her child exposed to that culture. I asked her what she meant by that, and she said she's worried about her daughter. She doesn't know what she's having yet, growing up around my culture because I've had multiple plastic surgeries. My daughter got a boob job for a graduation gift, and I'm vain. Brazil does have a reputation for being the plastic surgery capital of the world, but it's not like I'm taking a 5-year-old there to get a consultation. It is also a beautiful country with a culture that goes far beyond plastic surgery. I told her she's incredibly stupid, borderline racist, and she doesn't have to worry about being taken on any trips. My husband said maybe we should take her and get something done about her chin. I did tell him that was an a-hole thing to say, and my son now wants me to apologize for calling her stupid. While I think it's rude to say that, I think she far overstepped her boundaries, and by the looks of the joke that the husband made, he was in agreement with OP. I personally can't fault her for that. That's a defensive move to an outrageous statement by OP's wife. I'm on OP's side on this one. I'm gonna say, not the a-hole. Go off, sis. Everyone sucks here, but especially to whomever made the comment about the chin surgery, you'll need to sit in a circle and practice saying nice things to each other for frick's sake. I disagree. I think OP, you're the a-hole if you read what was said. It's not about never letting her kid go to Brazil. The girlfriend has clear problems with the in-law by saying, my son's girlfriend said that she doesn't want her child going with me in the future. The mention of culture doesn't mean she's talking about Brazil. Families have their own cultures too. In this case, it is a family culture glamorizing hating your body. And the girlfriend is allowed to keep her future kid away from situations she deems unsuitable for her kid. And a vain woman with a massively pro-plastic surgery view can be severely damaging for a kid's self-esteem. If it were about family culture, she wouldn't want her kid around OP in America either. Seems more like a desperate reach, and a miss at that, from you to justify her racism. Look, sharing time together in short bursts near home is different from sending your kid for a trip with just their grandparents. 24/7 grandparent time is different. Yeah, just because someone has had plastic surgery doesn't mean they're a terrible person or deserve to be called vain. People have the right to bodily autonomy, and racism is stupid. Girlfriend deserved to be called out. Furthermore, if she didn't want her child to be exposed to Brazilian culture, maybe she shouldn't have gotten pregnant by a half-Brazilian dude. This is in reply to the reply of the first comment calling them the a-hole. They say, "Are you serious? You know, lots of Americans have plastic surgery too, right? Better not ever take her daughters to LA or SoCal. Better not allow her around the lifestyles of anyone wealthy in America." I'm not sure where you live, but for some people, plastic surgery isn't taboo. It can really change people's lives for the better. It doesn't have to come out of self-hate at all. Did you have braces? Teeth whitening? Does that mean you shouldn't have done it because it came from self-loathing? I've had plastic surgery. My sisters have had it. Lots of our friends have, and we're not messes of self-hate beforehand. And you know what? I think younger girls are just fine around us. The girlfriend is being stupid and racist. If that's your view, don't say anything. Lots of women get plastic surgery in Brazil, but if you visit, you won't suddenly hate yourself and have surgery and come home a brand new person, lol. There is an entire culture that is her granddaughter's culture as well that she wants to share with her. OP is not the a-hole, the son is though. If she is so insecure that she'd projected onto her unborn daughter like that, then it sounds like she would be the one to give her daughter self-esteem issues, not visiting an entire diverse country. The girlfriend was taking a dig at the mum. OP's surgery is none of her damn business. She sounds incredibly ignorant. OP had every right to be insulted. Everyone sucks here. You both sound insufferable. Maybe avoid each other? She could have kept her opinion to herself or found a nicer way of phrasing it. You sound like you were waiting for a reason to hate her more. You had already planned on not including your second grandchild, even so much as calling them her child. Hypothetical. She is pregnant. The child isn't in any way hypothetical, they are a given. I think she meant the girlfriend having a girl is hypothetical, it could also be a boy. Posted by user ArcEnderall, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not considering my parents' adopted children as my siblings and not being willing to take care of them if something happens to my parents?" I know the title probably makes me sound horrible, but there is a lot more to this story. So my parents had me very late in their lives, after a crap ton of tries and being told they could not have kids. Well, here I am, but my dad was 51 and my mum was 45 when I was born. Despite their age, they were amazing parents, loving, caring, strict, but fair, and they were in a very good financial position in large part due to their age. So they put me through very good schools and paid my tuition to uni and so on and so forth. In other words, I had a great youth and was set up for success. Well, I am 26 now. I'm doing well for myself. However, the problem started 3 years ago. They missed having me in their house. It felt empty, they said, so they were considering adoption from another country where laws are more lacking. As in our country, their age would likely prevent them from even being considered. I told them that this was a horrible idea due to their age. Last year, they succeeded in adopting a little girl and her brother, aged 3 and 5. I have only met them a few times, and so far, all times, they were extremely shy, and frankly, I'm not close to them at all, as I live halfway across the country. So obviously, I do not consider them my siblings, but more so my parents' kids. Issue is, my dad is 77 now, and my mum is 71. They're still very fit for their age, and have a live-in nanny to help out. But let's be honest, they're in the age group where it's likely the end is near. So I visited them a week ago, and asked them what their plans were for the kids if they die before they're adults, and they were pretty much lost for words, looked confused and answered, "Obviously you'll take them in, you're their brother." I pretty much had the same reaction as they had to my question, and told them there was no way. I hardly know them, I'm not close to them, I do not consider them my siblings, and I certainly won't take care of 2 kids. Went over about as well as you can expect. Loads of yelling and screaming, which led to me leaving. I have not spoken to them since, apart from my mum sending me messages to reconsider. Obviously I do feel bad though. There is no one else who can take care of them, no other family, no close friends, just me. So they'll end up in the foster system. But am I the a-hole? Oh my god, that is such expectation, and I'm sure if you ask some people, they'll think you're an a-hole for abandoning those kids, but personally I can't blame you for that. The system is set up so that people like them don't pull these kind of stunts. And in every way, it doesn't seem like you're responsible for those kids, and you're not connected to them in any way. If anything does happen to your parents, it really does sound like the foster system is where they're going to go to next. Obviously, everyone has a different moral compass on issues like this, but I personally don't think that OP is the a-hole. Not the a-hole, adopting at their age is a terrible idea. They know they will die soon. Frankly, 10 to 20 years at most is what they can expect. You don't adopt a child because the house is empty. You get a bloody dog. It shows incredible selfishness and short-sightedness on their part because they clearly haven't given much thought on what will happen to them once they're dead or too old to care for a teenager. I'm surprised they were even allowed to adopt at that age. What agency approved this? The post says they had to go through another country to bypass laws. Oh, I missed that. Not sure what country they're in, but I believe in the US, you have to have a domestic home study before adopting. Yeah. My wife and I are working on scheduling that now. The whole process is a pain, but for a very good reason. Not the a-hole. How can they make a decision to adopt 2 young children so late in life, and then make the assumption that when they inevitably pass, you will be responsible for caring for them? That is truly screwed up. They are not your responsibility. I had hoped they had planned this out, but obviously they didn't. Oh, they planned it. They just don't give a crap that it's not something you're willing to do. They're banking on you folding when they die. It's not like they're going to be around for you to argue with anyway. But that won't happen though. In a few years, I will probably think about wanting my own kids, not taking care of my parents' kids. Stand your ground then, because your parents set this up banking on you folding when they aren't able to care for their children. This was pure selfishness on their part. Posted by user Alarming Strain 9425, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my kids the real reason their mother has been crying lately? I have a 23-year-old son who is married and currently staying with us due to financial issues, and a 19-year-old daughter who is home from college. My wife has been having bouts of crying recently. She just began menopause, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. But I do think there are underlying issues that the hormones brought out. She has told me that she feels like she wasted her life because she was a stay-at-home mum and she's not happy with how the children turned out. We are both Palestinian. She was born in Israel and I was born in the US, but neither of us wanted our children to be too westernized. She felt like she failed to keep the balance and that our children have no respect for their culture. Our son married a white woman. We don't care about that. Left Christianity, and his wife is a very vocal atheist. My wife can't stand having her in the house. Our daughter considers herself a political activist and has turned her back to everything her mother has taught her. My wife got into a little fight with our daughter-in-law last night over mascara. I wish I was kidding. And stormed off in tears. Our daughter made a comment about how high maintenance her mother is, and I told them both to leave her alone. She is going through a lot. My son wanted to know, so I was honest that she feels like they've turned their backs on our culture and that she is disappointed. Now both kids are mad at their mother and my wife is mad at me, but I still think they deserved to know. I'm not quite sure that was the right move to say in the heat of the moment, OP. Kind of feels like you threw gasoline on an out-of-control fire there. I myself don't really have any words for this situation because that just clearly was not the right thing to do, and as of this post, you've not shown any remorse for your actions or wanting to make amends with everyone else in your family. I don't know what to say, OP, but you're definitely the a-hole in this situation. You chose to bring your kids to be raised in a country that prioritizes individual choice and freedom, yet you somehow expected them to not be influenced by any of that surrounding them and be happy to be micromanaged and live in a culture that's foreign to them forever. That's a bit unrealistic. They haven't turned their backs on their culture. They've turned their backs on your culture and your control. It is disappointing when kids want to make their own choices, but that's to be expected of kids who were raised in the US. Cut the drama, stop putting the blame on your kids, take some responsibility, and live your own life. You'll all be happier. Wife, you, the kids, you're the a-hole. 100% agree. My parents brought us here as children and expected us not to get westernized. Well, lo and behold, we were. My mother acted much like your wife. Guess who doesn't talk to their mother anymore? Tell your wife to chill. It's better for you and your siblings that you did. It's better to assimilate to the country that you went to live in. You shouldn't forget your roots, but you also shouldn't force your children to continue the culture you brought with you. I think what bothered me the most is that even when we lived home, we weren't really religious. Once we came here, suddenly we had to keep kosher, go to the synagogue, and other general Jewish stuff in order for us not to forget our roots. Believe me, as a Jew who was raised around survivors, you never forget. My parents used to take us to a friend's house who had a tattoo just so we would sit there and see it, but we weren't allowed to talk about it or ask questions, all for the sake for us not to forget our roots. I've been the most distant about it out of the four of us. Oh no, your kids have thoughts and opinions of their own? Your son doesn't want to be a part of an organized religion? Your daughter is an activist? Wow, you guys really screwed them up. Sarcasm. You're the a-hole. And you know what? She's the a-hole too. She sounds overbearing. Are your kids on drugs? Are they in jail for sexual assault? Murder? Kidnapping? No. But she doesn't like them because they're not practicing the religion she wants them to practice, and they care about social and political issues more than organized religion and making mummy and dad proud. Screw that. Exactly this. Are they sugar babies or unethical day traders or tax cheats or Instagram influencers or cam girls, or do they sell drugs or a part of any of the worst aspects of Western culture? If not, then Opie and his wife raised them with values they carry to this day. It may not perfectly align with their religion or traditions of their culture, but their children are carrying on important ethical lessons they were taught in childhood. The wife sounds depressed. She needs to know that her contributions to her children's characters were very important, but probably can't see that in the middle of her current depression. Those are definitely not the worst parts of Western culture. Grow up and realize that capitalism, racism, and imperialism, etc. are worse than a girl selling titty pics to make ends meet. I love how they listed illegal things there and then they just lumped it in with things they don't personally like by the sounds of it. Cam workers, it's not a bad thing. There's a big demand for that. A lot of people like it. Doesn't make it immoral. You're the a-hole, but not for the reasons you think. You're minimizing her anguish here by blaming it on hormones. Maybe there's a part of that which is accurate, but hormones affect the intensity of the emotion experienced, not the thoughts which initially create them. Your wife sounds filled with regret and remorse, a precursor to depression, so you'd do well to help her get a professional who can assess and treat this. He did say that in the post though. He said that menopause might be a part of it, but that it was probably just a trigger that brought the other feelings to the forefront. But I agree, professional help for what seems to be the start of a depressive episode is a good idea. Posted by user Alternative Exact, titled AITA. I offered to pay for my kids' education as long as they agreed to my conditions. Now one of my kids owes over $50,000 and is mad at me. So I have twin sons. 4 years ago, shortly before they graduated from high school, I sat them down and told them that I'm more than happy to completely pay for their educations so they wouldn't need to take out loans. However, I let them know that my financial support was conditional. In order to get my financial support, my sons had to agree to the following. 1. They could not join a fraternity, except for professional fraternities. 2. They could not drink before the age of 21 or do drugs of any sort. 3. They had to maintain a 3.25 GPA and send me their transcripts every semester so I could verify this. 4. They could not go party more than once a month. I imposed these conditions because I often drank to excess myself in college. I needed 3 extra semesters to graduate due to failing quite a few classes. One of my sons, E, was a huge partier in high school. He told me that my conditions were too harsh and prevented him from having an authentic college experience, whatever that meant. He chose to take out loans to attend a state school. My other son Jay is the quieter and more studious of the two. He agreed to my conditions, and I paid for his education at an Ivy League school. Both E and J have been living at home ever since the pandemic started and caused schools to move online. E graduated with a degree in creative writing and a 2.95 GPA, while J graduated with a degree in computer science and a 3.9 GPA. Things came to a head last night at dinner. J announced that he had a job offer from Apple. I was about to grab a bottle of wine to celebrate his success when I noticed E looking glum. I asked him what was wrong, and E said that it wasn't fair how his brother had his education completely paid for and a 6-figure job right after graduation, while he was tens of thousands of dollars in debt and only had an offer from a temp agency. I reminded E that he could have had his education completely paid for as well, and pointed out that Jay's Apple offer was a function of his GPA and choice of degree. E knew he couldn't argue with me on the facts and stormed upstairs. "Oh, well, how are the turntables? If it isn't the," looks at notes, "consequences of my own actions. God, I'm so angry at my mum for not paying for my education when I decided not to take her offer. Oh, stop celebrating his success, Mum." Also note, she wrote this as a story. There was no question here about if she's the a-hole, not even in the title itself. So I guess I don't know what question the "Am I the a-hole" would be in relation to. But yeah, obviously you have quite harsh expectations and restrictions, but it's your money to do what you see fit with. And if they don't want to agree to those conditions, then they don't have to take your money. They are not entitled to that money. That money is something that you earn, and one son didn't want to earn that money. Not the a-hole. However, I find your restrictions quite harsh. I understand limiting a bit. However, one party a month? If they maintained their GPA, would it hurt to go to one a couple of times a month? Agreed. The party rule is a-holy. A better option would be to promise to keep drinking under control. Explain to them that you had issues with it in college and you don't want them to go down the same path. They're adults now, even if they're still young. Just means they're impressionable still, but able to have a mature discussion about a hard topic. This is an opportunity to teach and talk about addiction and substance abuse and how to balance work and play as an adult. Also, an opportunity for OP to let them go and grow up and be adults. They will be out on their own eventually, and you won't have any say in how they live their life, and sooner than you expect. But really, if the grades are there, who cares? Otherwise, not the a-hole. I'm all for restrictions like get a girl pregnant, cut them off. Drink and drive, cut them off. Poor attendance, cut them off. General bad behavior, cut them off. 2 parties in a month? Chill out, dude. Get a girl pregnant? That's a time when they may need the help most. And it takes 2 people to get pregnant. It does take 2. However, hopefully only one of them is my kid. What the fuck? I have no say in the other. I guess accidents could happen. However, depending on his actions now and his actions going forward, I'd play it by ear. However, I have no problem telling my kid, if they have a kid, I'd cut their tuition off. That just seems so counterproductive. Hey, now that you have more expenses and another being to support yourself, I'm not going to help you anymore. That just seems so counterproductive. So is having a kid in college. I'm not saying I'd abandon them. However, we'd have to rethink a few things. Both make valid arguments. It's hard to argue against that. You're the a-hole. You said you took an extra 3 semesters because of failing classes, but it looks like you learned a few valuable lessons from that, and everything turned out great. E seems like he takes after you, and maybe that extra time could have helped him figure out what he wanted, or learn that he could be in something more lucrative. Trying to prevent people from making the same mistakes as you can backfire. Sometimes they need that lesson to come with the mistakes. I told you so's are only valuable if they are likely to be in that situation again. Otherwise, actual help is way more useful. What are you expecting him to do? Go back in time and change his mind? People's brains keep developing until 25, and it sounds like one of your kids is realizing their mistakes, Hopefully, but can't do anything about it. Are you willing to let E get another degree, assuming that he applies himself? That's fair too. Exactly. College, not necessarily going to school, but your late teens/early 20s, is the time in our lives that we can make mistakes that won't screw up our lives as much as they would later on. Trying to protect your children from life and from mistakes creates dependent, stunted adults. Yes, took me 4 semesters to figure out that university is not my way. Was not that big of a deal for me financially, because here it's only about $300 a semester. I think the expensive nature of American university is skewing people's opinions here. People graduate saddled with like tens of thousands of dollars of debt. So, of course, having none of that in exchange for just not partying sounds great. I'm a Canadian, and here isn't that expensive either. I feel like that'd affect the general opinion in this thread. Yeah, I only have like $3,000 of debt going to university for 6 months in 2017, so I don't feel like bad for jumping in and then dipping out myself. And in response to the "You're the a-hole" judgment, Sunnyside Meh says, I don't necessarily agree with this. E had enough time to figure out that he was screwing himself over. After 4 years in college, renewing different student loan debts, and applying for new loans, he didn't figure out that he was going to be in $50,000 worth of debt? That's weird. He may not be the most responsible, but he damn sure knew that he'd have to pay back those loans. And being 18 at least at the time, he knew that, and he was perfectly capable of understanding that as well. The father gave him his wisdom. Don't waste your time and party only to prolong your responsibilities, and instead, be studious for 4 years and life will get easier. He did not follow those wise remarks from his father, so he didn't get to reap the benefits of wisdom. He's an adult who can make adult decisions, so hey, reap what you sow. I think this will be his dose of reality. The issue I have with this is that the last part of the brain to develop is the part that analyzes risk and reward. If E had already been partying, that isn't something an 18-year-old is going to want to give up for 3 years during college. Some people don't learn lessons from being told very well. The dad himself had to learn some of those lessons himself. It is foolish to think that his children will be immune from his mistakes just because he says so. And even if they did manage to avoid the exact mistakes, they wouldn't have actually gained the wisdom to avoid things like that without the dad there. I mean, OP can definitely let E sweat a bit and come up with a plan on his own, but he should help his son move forward. I'm not talking about a straight up handout or anything, but helping him go back to school wouldn't be out of the question. I get the individualistic argument that people should reap what they sow, especially from a government support perspective, but this is his dad. Presumably he wants him to succeed in the long term, not be financially struggling for the rest of his life, because he didn't want to make a commitment to not party when he was 18. People really can't make their minds up with judgments here. There's no a-holes here, there's "you're the a-hole," not the a-hole, everything, even everyone sucks here I've seen. Hot topic today, this one. Posted by user Protective Mama, titled, Am I the a-hole for yelling at my husband for letting my parents babysit our son? My husband and I struggled to have a baby for several years. It took a lot of fertility treatments, but we eventually got our miracle baby boy, 3 male. Because we had to struggle so hard to have this baby, I guess you could say I'm a little overprotective of him. He's only allowed to be in cars when absolutely necessary. Car accidents are the #1 cause of death. He only plays in our backyard with equipment built and childproofed by my husband, and I monitor everything he eats. I am always in contact with his pediatrician to make sure he is getting everything he needs. But most importantly, when I was pregnant, I made it clear to my husband that I didn't want anyone babysitting him, and one of us has to be watching him at all times. Because I make a lot more money, my husband quit his job when our son was actually born. This was all fine for a while. But after our son turned 2, my husband started trying to talk me into letting other people watch our son. But I point blank vetoed it. My husband is so good with our son, I don't want anyone else bonding with him. I told him he was being a bad father by trying to shirk his parental obligations, and he seemed to be understanding of my logic, but clearly I was wrong. That's some interesting logic. Recently, while I was at work, I'm essential. I was browsing Facebook on my lunch and saw one of those memories. It was a picture of my mum and dad with our son from when they went shopping for our 4th of July barbecue. I remember this outing, but I also remember my husband specifically being there. Lo and behold, in the comments, however, I noticed my sister-in-law had written, "So nice of you guys to give my husband's name a break. He needed that time at the beach bad." When I got home, I exploded. I was so angry at him for lying, and he just sat there quietly and gave me a death glare. He asked if I was done shouting, and when I said yes, he told me that we need to reassess the childcare situation. I told him that our child's safety is not up for debate, and he literally slammed his hands on the table while getting up, and stomped off into the basement where he stayed all night. There is a bunk bed for guests down there. This happened last weekend, and he's been cold to me ever since. Normally, he makes me breakfast, but over the past few weeks, it's been nothing but cereal or oatmeal. I've been giving him space, and hoping that he'll calm down eventually. But today on my break, I just saw a text that says, "We need to have a serious talk when you get home." I'm honestly at a loss now. I just want our son to be safe, and I thought my husband was on board with me on this. Now I'm not so sure. Am I the a-hole? Should I apologize to him? I might sound crazy here, but I think she might need to apologize to the man. Sounds like she's gone into overprotective mode, and while you can't particularly be blamed for that per se, this can only be bad for the child, and it's obviously only bad for your relationship, judging by the looks of things. I would imagine this is how many divorces happen when one parent becomes such a helicopter to their child and not allowing any harm into their life. No one else is allowed to look after them. Husband has to quit his job. Family is never allowed to look after the kid. You're straying down a dark path there, OP, and I do hope that you can get help, but you're the a-hole for this. I mean this in the most loving way possible. You have gone bonkers and need to see a therapist. You're the a-hole, a really big one, but only because you're having a mental problem you need to work through instead of feed. I thought the child was 3 months old. OP, for a 3-year-old child, yes, this is bonkers. Now, hear me out, because I truly honestly know how you feel and why you're doing what you're doing. Other than my husband, I haven't left my daughter with anyone apart from my parents, and even then, only for an hour or two. She's 2, and maybe that's bonkers too. But the difference is, I'm her primary caregiver. I'm allowed to say I want to take on all childcare 24/7. That's up to me. I am not allowed to tell someone else they must do so because it's a lot. Your husband is obviously drowning, and you're saying nobody can throw him a life preserver. That's unfair on him, and it's unfair on your son, who has to rely on a caregiver who's stressed and unhappy. You think he doesn't pick up on that and experience stress and unhappiness in turn? You're the a-hole. And the other stuff. Look, this is from one overprotective mother of a long-awaited baby to another. You are going to damage your child. I know you just want to keep him safe, but you're teaching him that everyday things like play equipment and car journeys are cause for massive anxiety. He's going to learn that anxiety in a way that will have lifelong consequences and change the person he'll grow into. You are stunting him. I know it all comes from a place of intense love, and you just want to protect him from anything that could possibly harm him, but you can't. And at the moment, the thing harming him is his mother. My daughter is absolutely fearless and gives me conniption fits on the regular, and I obviously don't let her, like, eat bees or wrestle alligators or whatever, but I have let her take risks and make mistakes, and then patch her up and dry her tears if she takes a tumble, because as her mother, that is my job. Therapy would be a really good idea for you, and you must agree on someone or someones who can look after your son, occasionally or on a schedule, so your husband doesn't completely break down. Feel free to PM me if you think I can help in any way. I really do understand how you feel. Yup, and a possible outcome of you not allowing anyone to help your drowning husband? He's going to divorce you. He's going to get physical custody while you pay child support, and no judge is going to force him into a custody agreement that doesn't allow him to have childcare occasionally. I want to shake some sense into you, OP. Ha! Sounds like their serious talk is about one step away from divorce already. This is a serious talk after several weeks of him holding on to the anger he felt. If he's able to hold on to it for that long, I'd guess this isn't a one-off. I'd guess this is what made him snap, because everything about his reaction just screams, "I'm done." But also, we got to keep in mind it could be postpartum depression as well that's just lasted for a long time. And Ninja02279 says, "You are totally the a-hole. Being overprotective is one thing, but exploding on him when he needed a break is way over the top. And the worst part, he felt like he cannot confide in you that he needed a break, so he had to lie. You seriously need to have that talk and listen to what he says. And one more thing, I get it. He's your baby. You love him. But if you helicopter him all of his life, he will grow to resent you later on. Better to listen to your husband now and work this out than have a kid that will rebel against you at a later age and truly break you. Also, your son will grow up to be the weird kid that can't go anywhere or do anything without his mummy. This will cause him so many developmental and teasing problems when he gets to school. Seriously, and in a nice way, if you are for real, you should go and talk to a therapist. Your behavior is not normal and you are going to ruin your son's life." Personally, I'm not surprised some people in the comments further down are saying this story is fake, but it doesn't read fake. It reads as someone that's mentally ill and needs help. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Other takeaways from this is people are saying that her behavior is abusive, and I agree with that too. Am I the a-hole for making the only woman at our job quit? This occurred over the course of months, and I was recently telling my family about this story, and my sister got mad at me and called me a sexist. But none of my actions had anything to do with that. I work at a small client service office. It only has about 50 people, all male, with the exception of a few support staff that were women. At the beginning of 2019, we had a new hire to our professional team who was a female. She initially fit right in at the beginning, but slowly she started to make changes and change our workplace for the worse. Prior to her joining, we had a very relaxed atmosphere. We'd curse, talk more explicitly, etc. No one seemed to mind, even our direct managers didn't care. But she complained about foul language and behavior, and soon our HR person got involved and told us we had to keep it more professional. Additionally, she was catty and would report people every so often. Essentially, she was making the workplace sterile and boring. We couldn't let loose as much, and all conversations had to be workplace appropriate. Our team would even have our own little events, like going out drinking together afterwards or go to concerts together, and obviously we excluded her, which she got wind of and obviously reported it. So now we weren't allowed to hang out as a team unless all were invited after work. I eventually told our team to not help her out with any projects and give her the bare minimum of assistance if she needed it. Most of the team agreed, and within a few months' time her performance dropped. I also made sure to report her every time she inconvenienced me. She eventually had a mini breakdown and ended up quitting. Obviously at work, the immediate team celebrated, but my sister apparently thought it was sexist. I told her if this had been a male doing it, we would have excluded him too. Dear Lord, how blind are you, OP? Do you not see what you were doing to this person? Oh, it was justified because they reported us and work just wasn't as fun after that. This is textbook sexism, you idiot. This is exclusion of a woman. You're so dumb, OP. How deep in denial are you that you were a piece of crap to this woman? My God, you're the a-hole in this situation. There's no coming back from that. You're the a-hole. You terrorized a random woman trying to do her job because she was probably reporting for legitimate fudging reasons. Lamau? What you consider foul language was probably super sexually charged to her. I don't trust a man who downplays the reasons a woman reported him to HR. I don't think any of the AITA ones made me this angry. The audacity to ask after clearly bullying her into quitting. Disgusting. I agree, OP. You're the a-hole. The only thing I find that you might have been right about is the work events. If you call it a work event, yeah, you're an ass. But if you were going out with friends, which it sounds like you were, then she has no control over your personal life. Other than that one thing, 100% you're the a-hole. Yeah, that's the one single thing that didn't sit right with me either out of a clear you're the a-hole. If it's a work event and announced as such, that's one thing. But you can't dictate how people group up as friends outside of work. That's crazy. I've never had to deal with HR, but would they really step in if there wasn't a legitimate reason? If it came out that literally everyone was invited but her, which I think is the case, as otherwise OP would have mentioned that others weren't invited, wouldn't this be grounds for a lawsuit? Especially given all the other crap they put her through. It seems to be really easy to prove workplace discrimination. I think you're correct. He said, we weren't allowed to hang out as a team unless we were all invited. To me, that means it was team events, not just him going out with his work friends, in which case, yes, you can't just exclude people. All conversations had to be workplace appropriate. You know, probably because it's a workplace. You're the a-hole. Hear, hear. I've been the woman in this post. Luckily, it was just my department that acted like a frat and not my whole workplace. But I was literally the only young woman working with a bunch of older guys, and foul language doesn't even begin to cover the bullcrap that I had to listen to. There were constant sexist boomer jokes, or my boss would say some crappy, women, right? Comment, and then look at me and be all like, oh right, sorry. There were literally nudie posters on the walls when I first started. There were literally tasks I was not asked to or allowed to do because I was a woman. The homo/transphobic and racist remarks were all over the place. I had to listen to the story of the first time my boss had even touched a boob in extreme detail, as he told the whole department like it was some cute and funny thing, and I was so intensely uncomfortable. The last one made me have a breakdown at lunch because I was just so tired of feeling so icky all the time. I reported it to HR, and luckily, that plus the gradual retirement of the older guys, who were all replaced with younger women, helped the atmosphere shift. But God, it was the singular most uncomfortable work environment I've ever been in. Guess who has a new job now? When I told my boss I was leaving, he was absolutely flabbergasted, and had absolutely no idea why I would go. Hilarious. You're the a-hole. Reminds me of my second job out of college. I stuck it out for 2 years and quit. All my managers were sexist boomers who would ask only the female employees to clean up the staff kitchen, make tea and coffee for clients, sexist jokes like, if you behave like that, what man will marry you? And follow that up later with, I was only joking. My assistant quit a few months into the job because our manager made her cry with his sexist bullcrap during a performance review. They would drink beer in the office during the day. Posted by user throwaway385647, titled, Am I the a-hole for not wanting to feature my fiancé's former significant other who passed away in our wedding? Trigger warning for loss and death. My fiancé was engaged for about a month to his high school sweetheart when she passed away in a tragic freak accident. For personal reasons, I don't want to get into how it happened, but it was no one's fault. This was maybe 6 years ago. Just for the purpose of this post, I'll call her Mandy. My fiancé has been very open about this loss and how it has affected him throughout our relationship. I know he misses her, and the memories he has with her are important and special. I don't want to take away anything to demean the relationship, and I've always been there for him on hard days and supported him when he needed it. We got engaged last year. The date is TBD, still for obvious reasons. It was very emotional for the both of us, and we've been really happy. But since planning the wedding, I've been feeling like I'm not only planning it for myself, but for Mandy as well. It started as comments from his family, a lot of, oh, Mandy would have loved this type of things. I brushed it off at first and just thought it was a way of them processing grief. I have a great relationship with his family, but I know they loved Mandy too. When I went dress shopping, his mum and sister came. They kept talking about what dress Mandy would have worn, what they could see her in, etc. It might seem like nothing, but it really overtook the conversation. So much so that another bridesmaid told me later that she felt uncomfortable for me too. It turned from harmless comments into focusing what should be a special event for me into reminiscing over Mandy. My latest project has been compiling old photos of me and my fiancé for a slideshow at the reception, or rehearsal dinner, we haven't decided. He told me there's something he's been wanting to ask me. He really wants to include some kind of in memory of Mandy into our wedding, and thinks that the slideshow would be a perfect place. At this point, I was, and still kinda am, fed up with the Mandy comments taking over our wedding. I sternly told him that no, I don't think that would be appropriate, as this is our wedding and should focus on us. We are having a table with pictures of loved ones who passed, and she will be featured there. He told me that he doesn't think that's enough to honor her memory. He wants to incorporate her in a bigger way, as she never got her dream wedding. He also thinks it would be a sweet surprise for Mandy's parents, who were invited since he is still really close to them. I did lose my cool, I'll admit. I told him honestly how I felt about the Mandy situation taking over our wedding and how I'm uncomfortable with it. I also asked him if he could ask his family to limit the Mandy comments at our wedding, since now I'm afraid the whole wedding will be focused on her. I told him that I need time away to think and have been staying at my parents' house, but we've still been talking. Am I the a-hole? Am I overreacting? I mean, if anyone else was put in this situation like this and it was so overbearing like that, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be an overreaction to vent like that to your partner. I agree with you, OP. I really think the family is taking this overboard, and you were cool with it at first and didn't say anything, and it really just took over the narrative of the wedding. Your wedding is a celebration of you and your partner, and yes, it's traumatic that Mandy was lost so suddenly like that, but it's not a celebration of Mandy's life. Neither is it a mourning of her death. It's a celebration of the bond between you two in life. To have that so overshadowed and overbearing by the entire family would crush me if I was you, in all honesty, because, what do you say to them? Do you say, yo, can we not? Because that's such an insensitive thing. I really feel like you've been put in between a rock and a hard place, but I don't think you're overreacting, and I don't think you're the a-hole. Not the a-hole. It turned from harmless comments into focusing what should be a special event for me into reminiscing over Mandy. That's exactly what would happen at your wedding. It's totally reasonable to ask that the focus of your wedding be on you and your fiancé. Sorry to ask, but are you sure he's ready to marry you? It kind of sounds like he's marrying the ghost of Mandy. OP replies, thanks for this. I can never tell if I'm overreacting to the comments or if I'm a bad person for being afraid that they'll take over my wedding. Mandy hasn't been an issue in our relationship until we got engaged. Yes, he has his hard days, like holidays or when her birthday comes around, but she's never overshadowed our relationship before. Maybe wedding planning is triggering some grief for him, but in a different way. I don't know. I thought we were ready for marriage. I don't want our relationship to end, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't either. Maybe wedding planning is triggering some grief for him. 100% that's what's happening. Weddings and funerals are the top triggers for everyone dealing with crap, whether it's grief, addiction, depression, etc. You need couples counseling, and he needs individual therapy if he's not already in it. If he's not willing to do that, then he's definitely not ready to get married. Time apart is a good idea, and I'm glad you're still talking too. If this isn't normal for your relationship, then I think you guys will be okay with time and help. This is good advice. He needs to understand that it's still okay to love Mandy and mourn her loss, but she is, for better or worse, in the past. You have already accepted her role in this past, but it's critical in these relationships to not be constantly reminded that, but for her death, he would have been with her. He and his family seem like they're living with that as a daily motto rather than an accepted reality. I do wonder about how she died. I understand that you don't want to go into detail, and I respect that, but I am curious if he feels responsible in some way. If he or someone in his family feels responsible for whatever reason, that's a whole other can of worms to consider. If it's also a scenario of, but for his action/choice, she would still be here, then he needs individual counseling. OP says, he was not directly responsible, nor was he even there when the accident happened. He expressed to me that he does have regrets about the day, saying things like, if I would have done this, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But still, he was not directly responsible. She was not responsible either, it was just a freak accident. Those regrets sound like survivor's guilt, and considering they were engaged at the time, I'm not surprised he and the rest of his family are having issues. Please make sure he gets counseling, take a deep breath, support him, love him, but stand firm. The wedding can wait until you're both ready. Not the a-hole. And based on this post, it honestly seems like you will always be an afterthought and a replacement for Mandy, his one true love, quote unquote. Talking about what Mandy would have worn for their wedding, had she not died? Wanting to include her in a slideshow about you guys? This is troubling to say the least. I really hope you don't spend your life being forced to compete with a dead girl. Future prediction, if you have kids and one is a girl, they, fiancé and his family, will want to name her after the dead girlfriend, at least the middle name. Talking about what Mandy would have worn for their wedding had she not died? And who would Mandy have married if she hadn't died? OP's fiancé. How disrespectful to OP and how painfully obvious that she's second best. And wanting to include her in a slideshow about you guys. Think of how upsetting it'd be for Mandy's parents. Here's another reminder that Mandy never got to get married because she died, and how uncomfortable for everyone but OP and his family. People are going to be whispering, oh, who's that? A sister? Cousin? Oh, late fiancé. Oh, wow, awkward. OP, not the a-hole. Think about whether this is truly a life you want to live, where you will be overshadowed by the memories of a dead person. When you're pregnant, I bet Mandy would have looked so beautiful pregnant. Have a baby? I bet Mandy would have been such a great mother and make parenting choices that are so different from yours. Don't compete with the memories of a dead person because you'll never win. A dead person only becomes better over time and can do no wrong, ever. Posted by user SnooChocolates7847. Titled, Am I the a-hole for being angry that my boyfriend is walking his best friend down the aisle? So, throwaway account. I've recently started dating this guy, Andy, for about 6 months. His best friends are Felicity and Jacob, and they've all been friends for over 10 years. Andy and Felicity are very close, and I mean very close. They go to one another for everything. They meet up 2 days of the week, and they text 24/7. At first, I tried to not think anything of it, as I knew they were friends, but I didn't realize they were that close. I've questioned it before, thinking that surely there was something between them prior. He laughed and said that nothing has ever happened between them, that Felicity and Jacob were always a thing. He also said that they went through a lot of things during high school, and that she was his person during really rocky periods in his life, and they're each other's support systems. I'll be honest, their closeness does make me feel uncomfortable, and I feel that it often interrupts our relationship. Fast forward to now, Andy is the best man, so he's often busy helping with wedding planning, etc. One night, I was invited to drinks, and I was then made aware that Andy offered to walk Felicity down the aisle. Confused, I asked why wasn't her father walking her down. Felicity said that he passed away, and that originally her cousin was walking her down, but he lived interstate and was unable to travel due to borders being shut. When we got home, I asked Andy why didn't he tell me, or even ask if I was okay with it. He replied that he didn't have the time to tell me, as it was arranged literally moments before we went out to drinks, and he asked why wouldn't I have been okay with it. I told him that I was slightly uncomfortable by the closeness of their relationship, and I often felt he prioritized their friendship over our relationship. That over the last couple of weeks, I felt that I wasn't given as much attention as Felicity had been receiving, and I didn't really understand why he was the one to be walking her down the aisle. He said that he was very close to her dad, and that Felicity is a very important person in his life, and she shaped him into the person that he is today, and that she's done so much for him that he wanted to do this for her. He said that I shouldn't feel uncomfortable and that he hadn't meant to make me feel that way. He stated that their friendship was important just as much as our relationship. I got angry by this, as I felt he wasn't understanding my perspective at all. I said that he clearly thinks I'm of less importance compared to her, and that he wasn't taking my feelings into consideration. I told him I was uncomfortable by it, and out of respect for me, he should at least just stick to being the best man, and perhaps find someone else to do the job. He said that I should be respecting his decision to do this for Felicity, and that she doesn't have anyone else to do this for her. I ended up dropping the conversation out of frustration, and I don't know if I'm being an ass in this situation. I think you are. I think you're being an ass in this situation. You're making a big deal out of nothing. This is a non sequitur situation. Nothing is going to come out of them walking each other down the aisle. They've been very clear with that, and it doesn't read like she would be cheating with him. I think you really need to get your head out of your ass, OP, and just suck it up. Let them be happy at the wedding and realize that nothing is going to come out of it. These are just your insecurities you're projecting, and you may need help being this insecure over this. Felicity has no one else to walk her down the aisle. Why would you take this one opportunity away from her? That's heartless. You're the a-hole, OP. You're the a-hole. He's walking her down the aisle, not waiting at the end of it. Their friendship sounds lovely, and it's really awful that you're letting your jealousy keep you from seeing that. Additionally, if I were in the boyfriend's shoes, not only would I side with my friend of over a decade, but I would also begin to question my relationship with OP. If OP hits boyfriend with an ultimatum, boyfriend will and should choose his friendship. Any unhappiness OP has with this whole thing is of their own making. Also, boyfriend sounded to be quite reasonable in the discussion of feelings and explaining why this was important to him without becoming defensive. Green flags on this guy for that, not red flags for his friendship with a woman. No kidding. 6 months and 2 weeks of supposed less attention versus a friendship of over 10 years. A father figure who shaped who he is as a man, and a close friend asking to be given away on her special day to another man. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. This poor girl's father died. Cousin can't come to her wedding, and you're objecting to your boyfriend of 6 months walking his friend of 10 plus years down the aisle at her wedding? She's literally getting married to someone else. Why are you dating this guy if you trust him this little? You're the a-hole. Gotta echo the above. You've seen someone for 6 months, and you want to bust up his relationship with longtime friends. I predict he'll have an ex shortly if you carry on like this. Posted by user Craigery, titled, Am I the a-hole for disinviting my brother to my wedding after he told me being gay is wrong? Little backstory. I've been out of the closet since I was 17 in 2007. When I came out, people in my family said some pretty hurtful things, which I totally expected, being from a Southern Baptist family. In, God, it hurts to admit this, but Florida. But my older brother at the time seemed very receptive, surprisingly. He told me that if my dad ever gave me any trouble, to call him and he'd talk to him. That was really the last time we talked about it. Flash forward 13 years, I'm 30, and I'm getting married to my fiancé Scott next April, if COVID so graciously allows. I started putting a package together of fun things from my brother and I's childhood, all with the intention of asking him to be my best man. However, he called me 2 weeks ago claiming he's wanted to talk to me about this for a long time. He went into the long tangent about how being gay is wrong and isn't what God wants. He said he thinks Scott is a nice guy and he loves me, but he doesn't think it's right that we're getting married. It was quite a shock, as Scott and I have stayed with him multiple times when we visit my hometown. To top it off, and what hurts people the most? He said my 3-year-old niece, whom we adore, won't be coming to the wedding because he didn't want to have to explain to her what was going on here. Notice, he only said that she wasn't coming to the wedding. I think he fully expected to still be invited after this. His wife, whom he started dating when I was 12, feels the same apparently. My whole dad's side of the family feels the same way they do, but I've already written them off mostly in my mind. I think what upsets me the most is a sense of betrayal. They were my safe spot in the family. I felt like because they were close to my age and younger and went to college, they would understand and it wouldn't be a big deal to them. I almost feel a bit embarrassed because Scott comes from a wonderful Italian Catholic family and they've never been anything less than loving and supportive. I told them that, on what is supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, if they or anyone else is sitting in the audience and in the back of their mind thinking that what they're doing is wrong or right, they should just stay home. I know my brother and family love me, but it feels up to a point conditional and limited. I told them that they learned being gay is wrong. They weren't born not liking gay people, so they can unlearn it if they were willing. But I don't think that's going to happen. It doesn't sound like it's going to happen anytime soon. And, I don't think they should come if they hold those views too. If it's going to come out as negativity on that day, if it's openly going to just ooze out of their being, I don't think it's the best idea to have them around if they're so unwilling to change. But again, that could be another point of contention. They could hold that against you. So I don't know what the right solution is in this situation. But for your actions, I don't think you're the a-hole. I think that disinviting them was a good idea. Not the a-hole. No one belongs at your wedding who isn't there to celebrate it. Abso-fudging-lutely. This saddens me every time I hear about it. One of my 3 sons is gay. I've seen how badly some of his boyfriends have been treated by their families. So many have said, I wish my father was like you. Not because I'm a special father, but simply because I accept my son's sexuality and treat him exactly as I do the other 2. They all get the same amount of bullcrap, insults, teasing, and sarcasm. Summer 2018, one of my son's exes announced he was getting married and asked me if I would stand in as his quote-unquote father to walk him down the aisle. It broke my heart that he needed to ask, but I said, of course, yes. Last year, I did it again for my son's friend. Not an ex this time, because there is apparently still someone left that he didn't screw. 3 years ago, my son invited me to go on a pride march. Almost as a joke, I bought a t-shirt with free dad hugs in huge letters on the front. I was amazed by how many took me up on the offer. Dozens. I'd guess at about 60. Some got emotional. I started the day in a party mood. By the end of it, I couldn't stop thinking about all the people who have to live without their father's love. I did it in 2018 and 2019. Same reaction. Looks like for 2020, the shirt stays in the wardrobe. It's bad enough they have to tolerate the homophobia the rest of the time, but their wedding should be a day off. Nobody comes unless they support you. And what is so difficult about explaining it to a 3-year-old? 2 people love each other and decide to get married. Simple. I think the difficult part isn't explaining to her what being gay is, it's somehow also convincing her that being gay is wrong. They're scared they won't be able to explain why they think being gay is so awful. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry, OP. Your brother is a huge a-hole. You deserve to have people there who support and love you guys. All the hugs, OP. OP's brother was there for him when he came out in 2007. He has also maintained a close relationship with OP since then, right up to now, including providing OP and his significant other a place to stay in his home. It seems, and this can only be verified if OP and his brother have a serious chat, that OP's brother has been strongly influenced by the wife and father, possibly using the daughter as leverage, to convince him that OP is living in sin. OP really needs to have a talk with his brother and understand where all of this is coming from, whether these are really the brother's views, and of course, whether the brother now permanently stands by them. If this is the case, it's the father and possibly the wife who are the real a-holes. If the brother now permanently stands by them, he's an a-hole too. Posted by user Throwaway Musical 72, titled, Would I be the a-hole for pulling my daughter out of a school play next year? My 37 female daughter, who we'll call Molly, 14 female, asked if we could talk earlier. She said that she still feels left out about missing last year's school play, so she wants my permission to participate in the play for next year now that the year is less than a month away. I told her about last year where I had pulled her out of the play because even though she got the part she wanted, she had to watch her brother, 9 male, and sister, 10 female, after scheduling issues. With the set times, 3:15 to 6, I get off about 5:30, she couldn't look after her younger siblings. She told them they're both turning 10 and 11, and they're well past the age where they can start looking after themselves. Molly also pointed out she started looking after herself since she was 8 whenever I went to work, which is true. I told her no. I said that she needs to stay home to look after them. Molly then started to argue. She asked why she has to look after them. Here is the following conversation we had. She asks, "Why is it because I'm the oldest, I'm the one left with those two? Mum, they're 9 and 10, almost 10 and 11. I shouldn't have to be looking after them anymore. They should be able to make a sandwich or something and then behave around the house. I don't want to miss another school play because of that." I say, they've already shown not to be responsible. So teach them, make a checklist, check in with them every half hour or something. They're old enough, Mum. I'm tired of being a babysitter. They sit around and watch TV anyway, so what's the point of being home early? I eventually just got angry with her and sent her to her room. Molly reluctantly obeyed. When my husband, 36 male, came home from work, I allowed her to come out, but she won't. She locked herself in and doesn't want to talk to anyone. My husband noticed she wasn't greeting him at the door right away. When he asked, I told him what happened, and he took her side. My husband says it isn't Molly's fault if the little ones can't keep track of their own damn heads if they weren't attached, and that we should teach them how to look after themselves and set ground rules. I disagreed. My husband went to talk to Molly now that she allowed him in. Am I the a-hole? Yes, I think you should have realized you're an a-hole when you left Molly to fend for herself at 8 years of age, and yet, at 10 and 11 years old, you don't think these two can look after themselves? I was playing RuneScape back at home at like the age of 7. I could look after myself. You just play games, go get some food, chill back and playing games. It's not that hard to, let a kid just chill at home. Especially if there's two of them the same age. They're not going to go tearing the house down. Hopefully. I think you're an a-hole for not trusting your daughter and for not letting her do a school play. I wish I could have done my school plays, but, that's regrets that we have later on. You're an a-hole for limiting that opportunity when she was given the part already. You suck. Edit. I have read all the replies, and I now know I am in the wrong. I'll go apologize to Molly and my husband and allow her in the play. I will also start teaching the other two how to act when I'm not home. Thank you for your judgment. You're the a-hole. She had to miss the play last year. Get a sitter for one night. You're really saying that you needing her for a few hours to watch your kids takes precedence over her school play that she's been rehearsing for? Come on. That play won't be just one night. It'll be months of after-school rehearsals, building sets, etc. You're still right though. So, children aren't your personal babysitters. Not OP, and perhaps you should read to the end before making knee-jerk retorts. Even reading to the end, older children are not your personal babysitters. Hell, even dad agrees with the daughter. Mum should suck it up and pay for someone to chill at the house for a few hours during rehearsal if she's that damn worried. As the oldest of 3, my younger sister being 10 years younger than me, it was absolute BS that I had to give up my free time and activities because my parents couldn't bother finding a sitter. OP, you're the a-hole. Get a babysitter or other family member to watch the younger kids if they're that irresponsible. Someone who's actually agreed to watch them. Having to always watch your younger siblings will eventually lead to resentment towards them and not wanting to have a relationship once they're older. My sister could not stand me till I was about 15, and it was all because she had to give up a lot to watch us. Am I the a-hole for going out and getting the same job as my husband to show him that it's not that hard? Would I be the a-hole if I fail? All my husband has done for the last 6 months is tramp about how hard his job is. I get it. It's physically demanding and a lot of walking, but it's only 3 days a week. A few days ago, I asked him to go for a walk with me, and he said he was too tired. He's too tired to do anything. I cook, clean, then go out and do Uber almost every day because his job is so hard. He can't be bothered to do anything. It caused a huge blowout, so I took a trip down to the job recruitment center and they signed me up right for his exact same job. It's a windmill factory. You go out and pick parts, load them on a cart, and take them inside. These parts can weigh anywhere from a few grams to 50 pounds. I came back home and told him the great news, that we were both making tons of money now, and he was super ticked. All he's done for the last few days is tell me, "You're going to fail. It's going to be too hard for you. You're wasting your time. You're going to end up hurting your back again." He also told me I'm not supposed to tell anyone we're married, because when you get fired and quit, I don't want that reflecting on me. I have a whole drawer full of back braces, compression socks, and muscle relaxers. I'll be fine. We both previously worked at Amazon. He was fired, I hurt my back being stupid and had to quit. And he also bitched constantly about that. He swears this job is 10 times harder, but I legit didn't think Amazon was hard at all. I was just dumb about picking stuff up. Am I the a-hole? Should I have just stayed in my place, cooking, cleaning, and doing side work? Would I be the a-hole if I fail? No, I don't think you're an a-hole for going and trying this job out, you know. I feel like as your husband, it's his job to be supportive of you no matter what you do. And by the way he's phrasing this right now, it's like he's setting you up to fail, which isn't a very cash money thing to do if I'm honest. Everyone does fail in life, and I don't think you'd be an a-hole if you failed. Although I think his concern comes from you're married and working together at the same place level, which, you know, some people can see as weird, and I understand that. Personally, I don't think you're an a-hole for this, but everyone has their opinions on it. Everyone sucks here. Your husband sounds like he's really good at making excuses, but at the end of the day, he can't use his job is hard as an excuse to shirk his responsibilities at home. You literally went out of your way and got a job to spite him. I get that it's frustrating, but at the end of the day, what do you really think you're going to prove constructively by doing this? You guys need to work on communication and actually supporting each other instead of trying to prove the other wrong. Everyone sucks here, but wife did a Chad move. Is OP an a-hole? Probably. Does she have big dick energy? Yes. Or bad bitch energy. I heard that's the female equivalent of big dick energy, though I feel big dick energy is gender neutral personally. Everyone sucks here. Y'all have a toxic marriage dynamic. You sound like rivals, not partners. You dismiss him, he dismisses you. You literally got a job just to prove he's whiny. What a spiteful motivation. He sounds miserable, but so do you. Yep, hate to sound corny, but you two are supposed to be partners in life. You're supposed to be supporting each other and taking care of each other. There is absolutely nothing corny about any of that though. True. Yep, this so much. Also, you simply can't compare suffering. A constructive step would have been to discuss how it bothers you that he continually talks about how hard his job is and if he can reduce it. Clearly, his level of acceptance of physical demand is different than yours. If that triggers you to a level where your marriage turns into being rivals, maybe look for a better matching partner. This will come up more often. Life includes suffering. Not the a-hole in my opinion. I find this fudging hilarious. He deserves to be shown up if it truly is like you say it is and you're busting your ass trying to pick up the slack. Maybe suggest he stay home to tidy and cook and do everything else instead. I mean, it is kind of a petty reason for getting the job, but time will tell if she's right or not and where to go from there. Some men, and some women, are just kind of lazy and will use any excuse to not help at home. This comment section doesn't seem to think that's a possibility when it could be. If she ends up being wrong, then that'll just be a lesson learned for her. If she's right, then maybe it'll be a wake-up call for her partner to complain less or shift to another line of work. Agree, petty does not equal a-hole, not the a-hole. Also, it sounds like she tried talking to him about pulling his weight more and he refused to listen or compromise. I don't get all these people saying that they need to communicate better because it seems like OP definitely tried to do that. Communication takes two people in order to be successful. I think she's not the a-hole in this scenario because she didn't get the job with malicious intent. She was just at her wit's end with him using this job as an excuse to not contribute to household chores. He should have listened to her when she tried talking to him about it reasonably. ETA, I also work in a warehouse lifting heavy things, as a 130-pound woman, so probably a lot less physically strong than OP's husband. And yes, it's physically demanding, but not so much that I have no energy to do literally anything else. A lot of the people I work with have multiple other jobs as well. Sounds like hubby's attitude is the problem, and if the job is genuinely too much for him, maybe he should switch and drive Uber instead. Posted by user Snoo10465, titled, Am I the a-hole for giving my wife an ultimatum about getting a dog? I had a dog when my wife and I got married. I loved her, she was my buddy. When my wife got pregnant, she became increasingly paranoid that the dog would be a danger to the baby. She brought up rehoming and I refused. She was a quote-unquote aggressive breed, but she was trained. One day, she called me crying at work that the dog ran away and she couldn't run after her. I believed her, and I looked for that dog for weeks. I finally just accepted it because we had to go to the hospital to welcome our child, and there were just other pressing concerns. It's been 5 years since then, and we now have 3 children. I've wanted to get a new dog, but the kids take a lot of energy and time. My wife has always had a new excuse not to get another dog. I found out recently that my dog didn't run away. My wife and her father took the dog to the pound while I was at work because her parents agreed with her about the dog being dangerous. I'm furious. She was my dog, my baby. She wasn't dangerous. I would never have agreed to that. She probably never got adopted, and I'm honestly mad enough to consider a separation if not for the kids and practical reasons. I've told her that the only way to make it up even a little bit is for us to get a dog. She ultimately doesn't want a dog at all, and complained that she would have to do too much with it. I'm not planning to let up on this one this time. And the question stands, am I the a-hole for giving my wife an ultimatum about getting a dog? Given the entire context of this story, I don't blame you for giving your wife an ultimatum. Her and her father just went out and dumped the dog in a pound without telling you and then lied to you. She's married to you. You're not supposed to keep secrets in a marriage. That kind of defeats the point. If I were you, I would be very furious finding this news out, and I'm surprised that they leaked it to you. To me, I don't think that forcing a dog on the wife will solve any issues. I feel like it'll just make things worse, but it's what I would probably do if I was you. I'm not recommending it, it's not going to solve anything. I don't think you're an a-hole for giving the wife an ultimatum, but I really feel like this is one of those make or break situations. So unless you guys go to couples counseling, therapy or whatever to smooth this over, get her to apologize and come up with a deal and get her to stop being so crazy about a dog because she wasn't crazy about it before the baby, then you can save this. But this is one of those arguments that do break marriages by the sounds. But I don't think you're an a-hole. Not the a-hole. Get a dog after your divorce, dude. You said you looked for the dog for weeks, and I'm sure you were distraught while you searched for her. Your wife continued to watch you in pain, knowing she caused it and did nothing. She also disrespected you as a parent. She made a decision that something wasn't acceptable for your child to be around this dog, and you disagreed, but she decided she knew better than you. Also, F your in-laws. Let's ignore the dog for a moment. Your partner in life, your sickness and health, your love maliciously hurt you. At a minimum, she ripped something you loved from you and caused you deliberate and direct distress over a hypothetical risk. In likelihood, she murdered it. But at a minimum, she took it from you and lied to you about it. Not the a-hole. This is not okay, and it's not something someone does to someone they love. You would be the a-hole if you got another dog, because she clearly can't be trusted with them. You would be causing that creature potential harm. But honestly, get that divorce. If she's capable of doing this to you, can you really trust her? Her or the highway? Yeah, hit the highway. Makes me wonder what she'll be capable of during the divorce and child custody though, given how much she doesn't mind being cruel and cold-blooded. Not the a-hole. I can't believe she would go out of her way to make family plans to destroy your trust. I would never be with someone who disrespected me to that degree. Wow. Don't get a dog with this woman. She didn't care about getting rid of your dog before. What's to stop her from just doing the same thing again? Posted by user Branch Loans. Titled, Am I the a-hole for saying my wife wasn't my dream girl in a trivia game? So, my wife and I have been doing a game night every so often with some other couples via Zoom since we can't go out and see people lately. We were playing this card game the other night that was like basically a trivia game for couples to play, and you're asked a question and you write down your answer and your partner has to guess what they think you answered. If they guess correctly, your team gets a point. Whichever couple knows each other the best wins. So, some of the questions in this version were a little spicy, and one of the questions was, who is your dream man/woman to have sex with? I wrote down my spin instructor, since my wife knows I think she's hot, and thought she'd guess her and we'd get a point. Well, screw me. Turns out every other husband either wrote down their wife or a celebrity/fictional character. My wife was livid and upset. I tried to explain I didn't actually want to do anything with my spin instructor, and I would never even briefly consider being unfaithful. It was just me trying to play the game. She doesn't believe me, saying everyone else's instinct was women who didn't exist, or better yet, their wives. I feel really bad, but also really confused. I don't know how to deal with this. Is she overreacting, or am I an a-hole? And no need to tell me about the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. No, I hadn't seen it. Yes, I've seen it now. Almost every man there sent me references to it as soon as the video was off. I think it's pretty clear that he's an a-hole judging by the reactions there. You know, it's kind of not something you want to hear as a partner being like, oh, you want to screw them? You know, are you going to confirm that? That's really nice. God, that just makes me so happy that you want to screw that person and not me when we're in a marriage together. Thank you. These are just one of those thoughts you keep in your head and you don't ever express. You take that to the grave, OP. It's what you should have done here. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Who humiliates their wife in front of friends? Oh, right. You do. I would strongly suggest you quit your spin class immediately and spend as much time and effort as it may take groveling to win back your wife's trust. Good grief, man. Honestly, OP is going to hear about this for ages, but if he doesn't quit that spin class ASAP, ooh boy, he just gave her a massive reason to worry about it, in addition to humiliating her in front of friends. OP, you're the a-hole buddy. Big oof. The obvious answer is OP's wife, but if he wanted to be funny, he should have said a famous dead person like Marilyn Monroe, Cleopatra, Marie Antoinette, etc., etc. And like, they don't even need to be dead. They just need to be people you don't personally know. You could say Scarlett Johansson and be fine with most people. You can't say someone that you could reasonably cheat on your wife with. My husband's is Uma Thurman. Mine is Vin Diesel. Also, my husband's oft-stated wish is that a Swedish bikini team move into any vacant apartment in our complex. Pure silliness, we both actually deeply love each other. You're the a-hole. Dream girl, i.e. someone you will literally never get the chance with, like a celebrity. You don't put down someone that you know in real life that you interface with on a regular basis. We were making our freebie list for fun, and my wife picked David Tennant, Idris Elba, and Brad Pitt. I picked my coworker, our next-door neighbor, and my wife's sister, and that's when the fight started. Honestly though, even the concept of a freebie list is weird as hell to me. If you have an open relationship, then by all means have a long list. But if you're monogamous, that feels a bit weird to me. Do your thing. It might work for your relationship, but it's uncomfortable for me. I don't give a crap who shows up. I'm really not interested. I have too much going on with my wife. I don't have any interest in changing that. Posted by user Electronic Stomach 78. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my boyfriend correct a Chinese woman? We live in a shared house with a bunch of random Craigslist roommates. One of them is Chinese and was sitting at the kitchen table during lunchtime, slurping her noodles and minding her own business. My boyfriend had just come into the kitchen to eat his own lunch, and rather than ask her how her weekend was, or anything other polite conversation, he instead asks her, "Can I teach you something about culture?" I knew he was going to tell her that Americans consider it rude to slurp food. But this woman wasn't at a business event. She was in her own house, and in my opinion, can eat her own culture's food however she damn well pleases. Especially since she was just sitting alone by herself first, and we just happened to enter the same room after. So I cut my boyfriend off and said, "Stop." He kept trying to talk to her. "Don't say anything," I said again. He kept wanting to press the issue. Ignoring me, he said, "I don't care, but Americans think it's rude to slurp your food." "Jeff, stop it! Drop it!" I said, as she looked highly embarrassed and quietly continued eating her meal. I apologized to her and said, "I apologize for Jeff's comment." And he said, "And I apologize for my girlfriend not letting me talk to you." I don't think it's Jeff's place to educate people who didn't ask for feedback and were just trying to be comfortable in their own home. He thinks I'm being a culturally insensitive racist liberal for not letting him help teach American customs. Who's being the a-hole here? Edit, by help teach her American etiquette, he meant that he wanted to tell her that Americans would find it rude if she slurped her food at a business lunch or such occasion, not that she had to stop doing it at home. He worked as a cultural consultant abroad, helping foreign business people secure deals with Americans by teaching them about customs and mannerisms and whatnot. So I genuinely believe that Jeff thought he was doing her a favor by letting her know that others might be turned off by slurping. But I still think that 1, it's not his place to give such information unsolicited, and 2, the minute you point out that Americans find slurping rude, she's going to feel self-conscious and judged about doing it at home, even if Jeff says it doesn't bother him. Yeah, I've got to agree, I think OP is not the a-hole in this situation. I think she was just trying to stop a very awkward interaction going on between the two. I personally would be very embarrassed if I was that person slurping the noodles, like, just leave me alone, I'll figure it out one day. It's kind of rude to just put it on them like that when they're minding their own business. But I guess everyone's different. You want to learn in your own time. People want to help you out before you embarrass yourself. But most people learn the hard way, and that's kind of just life. So in my opinion, OP is not the a-hole. They were just trying to de-escalate a situation that never should have started in the first place. You are not the a-hole for being compassionate and respectful and a decent human. Your boyfriend is the complete a-hole. You hit it square on the head. They pay for that space and can eat as they please. Who gives a frick about American? America is literally a land of immigrants. I think you did the right thing, and your boyfriend is the racist and culturally insensitive a-hole. Obviously, other things are bothering him, and he chose to take it out on a roommate. Never okay. Do not apologize for being decent. I think it's an a-hole move to come into someone's house and tell them that Americans will find her slurping rude. She wasn't asking for an opinion, she was just eating by herself. You were right, he was wrong. It is an a-hole move to come into someone's home and tell them they are rude. I mean, it's your own house. I think you're allowed to eat how you want in the privacy of your own home. Jeff sounds insufferable. He's a guest in her house, and he's lecturing her on manners? Ick. Not the a-hole for attempting to shut that down. Is this how he acts all of the time? Not that it matters, but it doesn't seem like he's a guest. They are all roommates. Oh my god, they were roommates. Jesus. The thing is, you would think that given his job, he would be more sensitive, as he would be explaining the customs to other cultures in a polite, non-patronizing manner. The fact that he can be so rude and unaware makes me question if he's actually good at his job. Side note, this is the kind of behavior that entitled people have, which I hate. The fact that he thinks he's so up there that he can educate a poor Chinese lady who is stupidly unaware of how rude she is, etc., is kind of disgusting. It feels like he's treating her and her culture as uncivilized or something. Posted by user NYC Trip Mum Throwaway, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not allowing my daughter to go on an 8th grade school trip?" This happened 3 years ago, and my daughter Mallory still resents us for this. I'm asking now because my son is going to be starting the 8th grade next school year, permitting that schools will reopen again and this event isn't cancelled. At my kid's school, there is a big annual spring break trip to New York City and Washington, D.C. It's something that most of the kids, including my own, were looking forward to. When Mallory started the 6th grade, she talked about wanting to go on the trip. We said she could, so long as she got good grades and didn't get into trouble. When she was in the 7th grade, her aunt Linda got engaged and set her wedding date for the following year. This is going to include a big family reunion with all the relatives because Linda was the last of my siblings to get married. Big fat Catholic family, many of whom we haven't seen in years. Unfortunately, Linda planned her wedding to take place the same week as Mallory's 8th grade spring break. We ended having to tell Mallory that she couldn't go on the trip after all because everyone was going to be going to the wedding instead. Like I said, this was going to include a family reunion, and it may be the last time we got to see some relatives, including her great-grandparents, for a long time. Mallory was heartbroken. We offered to take a family trip to New York, but she turned it down because she wanted to go with friends and not family, which is understandable. Cue to the week of the wedding a year later. We flew out to New Mexico for the ceremony and crash at my sister's, not the bride's house. Mallory is still upset about having to be in New Mexico when all of her friends are in New York. A few days before the ceremony was to take place, Linda called off the wedding. Mallory was furious. I can still remember her blow-up. She screamed, "So I missed my trip for nothing?" and stormed off into the room she was sharing with her cousins and wouldn't let anyone in. It was a mess afterward. I tried to cheer Mallory up by offering to take her sightseeing or go see a movie with her cousins, but she refused. I gave up after she refused to go to the movies with us, saying that she didn't want to watch a dumb kids movie with a bunch of babies. While she is the oldest of the cousins, the next nearest cousin in age was 9 at the time. Mallory refused to speak to us during the flight back, and to this day she's still angry at her aunt Linda. I know Mallory was upset, but no one could have predicted that the wedding would be called off. We've tried to make it up to her, but she has refused every offer. I know she wants a trip with her friends, but that New York trip is expensive, and many of her friends' parents were not willing to spend more money on another outing for the girls. Because of this, Mallory thinks I am an a-hole. Am I? You're the a-hole. Not only did you know she wanted to go on this trip for years, but you agreed to it and then pulled the carpet out from under her feet. I'm sure something could have been arranged with other parents if you would be unable to pick her up and drop her off due to you leaving for this wedding. Adding to this that she was more likely to see her family members again than to get another chance for a trip like this. So that wasn't a good excuse to not let her go either. Should have just let the kid choose herself. You're the a-hole from me too. Right? Like, maybe at her own wedding, and even if she wouldn't have invited all the people who were at that wedding, or they'd die before then, and that was honestly the last time they would have ever seen them, then how close was she to them? Compared to her friends? I've gone to funerals to relatives I've literally never met before. If I had to miss out on something important to me only because this might be the last time you see them, then I would be ticked too. Like, yes, they're family, but other than very distant blood, to the point that they're not even related to me anymore, there is nothing that ties us together. I've gone to funerals of relatives I've literally never met before. Isn't that such a surreal experience? My grandfather on my mum's side was like this. He and my grandma divorced long before I was born, and I saw him maybe once or twice a year until I was maybe 7. A total of less than 10 times, I expect. Didn't see him again until I was maybe 12 at my aunt's wedding. I didn't even recognize him. Another 8 to 10 years later, I'm at his funeral. A man I hadn't seen in possibly a decade and couldn't even remember what he looked like. I have to actively stop to think to remember his name. My younger brother probably met him less than 4 times before the funeral. After the ceremony, I stood at the front of the room between my mum and sister with a line of people coming by giving me their condolences. Each one of these individuals had probably spent exponentially more time with that man than I had. It was so odd. It gave me this weird out-of-body experience. I wouldn't have gone if not to be there for my mum and auntie, whom I actually have relationships with. You're the a-hole. Kids that age don't have a lot of interest in family events like weddings. The trip she missed was a once-in-a-lifetime coming-of-age event. There is no making up for that. Would anyone have really missed her at the wedding? She wasn't the bride or any other integral part of the wedding. Crap. My high school had a year 8 trip as well. The trip may sound pretty bad, but it involved a lot of activities that were just not available in my small hometown. The problem? Well, the school screwed up royally. 150 students in my year level, no different to any other year level, but they had decided to drastically cut back on the capacity for the trip. 100 students were selected to go. I was one of those who missed out. Still a bit ticked off about that, because those that went came back closer, and those that were left out, well, we were left out of everything from that point on. Same here. My class was the largest, and they picked who went. I wasn't selected, which really sucked when both my older and younger siblings got to go on this school trip. It's been probably 20 years, and I'm still mad at the school for doing this. Posted by user ThrowRA Help Is Needed, titled, Am I the a-hole for asking my daughter to take her siblings along and being mad that she didn't take care of him? A few days ago, my daughter, 17 female, was going on an outing to a coffee shop, wouldn't tell me what shop, and I asked her to take her brother, 9 male, and she said no. Also, this is allowed. And started complaining about how a 9-year-old ain't gonna fit in a crowd of 17 to 18-year-olds. I just told her to watch him, and she said that I can do that just fine. My 9-year-old is very active, never sleeps, and he's a little annoying. I needed a break that day, just for an hour or two. My daughter started arguing with me, and in the end, when I threatened to ground her, only then did she leave. She came back 2 hours later, and there was a French coffee in her hands, and this Oreo Blizzard in my son's. My son gets even more active after eating sugar, and doesn't even sleep. I yelled at her and said that she wasn't supposed to get him anything, and she said that he wouldn't stop whining, and that he's been eating fruits for the past week, so he deserved a drink, and he's not gonna die. I'm sure she did it to spite me. I didn't ground her or anything, just sent her to her room, and my son is sad that I took his drink away. I don't want my son to have cavities, he already has a sweet tooth. Am I the a-hole? Yes, you're an a-hole. He's been eating fruit this whole time. 1 or 2 sweet treats a week isn't gonna give him cavities if you're already giving him so much sugar in the form of fruits anyway. I think you're an a-hole for being so hard on the both of them, and I think you need to take a chill pill, OP. You're the a-hole. Why would you send a 9-year-old to a coffee place to hang out with 17-year-olds? She shouldn't have taken him along in the first place, and that's not an age group where he would fit in. And then got mad that he got something? She wants him to go to a shop where everyone else was getting something and have nothing for himself. She was being the a-hole to both of her kids. OP should be grateful the daughter didn't load him up with some espresso. You're the a-hole. Agreed. OP cared more about free babysitting and a break than anything else, including the daughter's feelings. You're the a-hole. You're the parent, not her. And she's right. It's weird to have a 9-year-old around a group of 17 to 18-year-old teens. Parenting is your job, not hers. I offloaded parenting to my teenage daughter, and then punished her and my younger kid because I didn't like how she parented. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. If you really wanted a break from your annoying and active 9-year-old, tell him to go outside and play in the backyard. Your daughter is 17 and was hanging out with people her age. Why even threaten to ground her just because you want a little break? Tough crap. Or she could have gotten a babysitter, that's literally what they're for. Or even asked her daughter to babysit, paid, when the daughter wasn't already busy with plans of her own. So she basically bullies the daughter into including the 9-year-old on a teen hangout, then freaks out when the daughter gets the kid the age-appropriate version of whatever drink she's having herself. The idea is, get him away from me, but don't let him enjoy himself. This post belongs on r/choosingbeggars. Am I the a-hole for using my soon-to-be ex-wife's history against her? My wife filed for divorce after the birth of our 3rd child. She started gunning for full custody after getting jealous that I have started dating a new woman, 21 female. Previously, she wanted to negotiate a 60-40 split despite my protests it be 50-50. I'm pretty sure she's talking trash about me to our kids. My soon-to-be ex did some porn in the late 90s to get through college. She wasn't very well known and it was mostly amateur work. Afterwards, she graduated, dyed her hair, and tried to bury it. However, she told me about it when we were dating, and I had the tapes that were quite frankly pretty hard to find. My ex teaches computer science at a middle school. I ended up notifying the principal with the evidence, and a week later, she was fired. My lawyer also is in the process of submitting the tapes in our child custody battle. Am I the a-hole? All I want to do is not to be robbed of my kids, and she was actively doing that. Our other 2 kids are 13 and 11, and we miss each other, and I wasn't the one that uprooted our kids. However, my sister-in-law is calling me out on Facebook for being sexist and being cruel for outing her sister when we're living in a very conservative jurisdiction of Georgia. Edit, since everybody's up in arms about it, I'm 43, my ex-wife is 1 year older. Yeah, that's a really crappy thing for you to do, dude. I mean, she was obviously trying to hide that in her past, and she obviously showed you this out of good faith as her partner. That's a really disgustingly low blow that she was obviously young and needed the money to get through college. And yet you still go out and use that against her, knowing full well the damage you're causing. I think that's utterly reprehensible, and you deserve all of the backlash you're getting, OP. That's disgusting. You're the a-hole. Forget the mum. What you did was actively harmful to your kids. With mum out of work, they are now less economically stable. Your children now have less support, they will face ridicule at school because this will get out. If you think your children will be better off because of this, you are sadly mistaken. You have caused them years of suffering. You're the a-hole all the way. I won't comment on the harm that you did to mum, but yeah, you're the a-hole for that too. If the kids' friends or classmates find out, it's going to be something that will get them made fun of and messed with. One of the teachers at my high school used to do porn, and was fired for it. He didn't have kids in our school, but let me tell you, that story spread like wildfire. And you'd better believe that even if the clips were hard to find at one point, by the time the school year ended, they were all over the place. I can't imagine how difficult this is going to be for those kids. You're the a-hole. What I gathered, you were dating someone just 8 years older than your child. You chose to get your wife fired because of a custody issue, and hopefully a judge will see this as the malicious attack that it was, and will give her custody while charging you alimony and child support as you made her unable to support herself and your children. I mean, he knew about the porn, but still decided that this woman was fit to be his wife and the mother of his children, but now he wants to act like this makes her unfit. It's absolutely obvious this was done as revenge and not out of concern for the children, and just like you, I hope they end up with a reasonable judge that sees him as the a-hole that he is. I expect most judges will see the date, know how long ago he got those tapes, and establish the fact he didn't care about them at the time and thought her a perfectly acceptable parent until now. Posted by user Shirt Problems, titled, Am I the a-hole for getting mad at my sister for not wanting me shirtless at her pool? My sister and her husband invited me over to their pool today for a little barbecue. I assumed it would just be me, my sister, her husband, my nephews, and my parents. But turns out they also invited her husband's side of the family. When it was time to get in the pool, I changed into my swim trunks and removed my shirt. But my sister stopped me before I came out of their house and asked me to keep my shirt on because of my scars. She was referring to the scars from when I had my top, chest, surgery. I'm a trans guy, had started transitioning 8 years ago, and my surgery was 4 years ago. My scars have already faded, and they're pretty well hidden under my pecs. You'd have to look really close to even notice. I've been to their pool many times, and she's never said anything before, so I was surprised. Every other guy, including my dad, were all shirtless in the pool. When I asked what the problem was with my scars, she said she was uncomfortable with her in-laws knowing I'm trans. My feelings were hurt, but I was mainly just ticked. She said she didn't want her in-laws to look at her differently if they found out about me. She told me not to make a big deal and to go with it. When she left, I went back inside to change because I wasn't going to go into the pool with a shirt on. I only had the one I came wearing because I didn't expect her to ask me this. My mood was soured after that, and I didn't want to be around her, so I decided to leave. When I said bye to everyone, they were all confused since I was only there less than an hour. My dad pulled me aside and asked why I was leaving early. I told him to ask my sister and left. An hour later, my sister called me upset because she and my dad got into a fight. My parents are furious about what she told me, and they ended up leaving early too. Now she's angry at me for ruining the barbecue and said I didn't have to cause all this drama if I only did what she asked. What she said hurt me, and I was no longer in a mood to be around her or anyone else. But I didn't mean for all that to happen. Am I the a-hole for getting mad at her and basically ruining their day? This is what we call deflecting the blame, and you are definitely not at fault for that. She couldn't get her way, she blamed you for the problem initially, and now she's doubling down on it, OP. I don't blame you for standing your ground. You didn't ruin hers or anyone else's day. She ruined her own day and chose to escalate it and ruin everyone else's. This is completely her fault and not yours, not the a-hole. No way. Showing your scars and explaining why you have them on the spot would have been much easier for everyone. Your sister ruined her own barbecue. I bet her in-laws have so many questions in their minds now too. MOP replies, I mean, unless they stared right at my chest at a real close proximity, like standing at least a few inches in front of me, they'd barely be able to notice, so it's not like I would have had to do a whole coming out speech in front of everyone. I don't know why to her it seemed like it would be so obvious. It shouldn't matter whether they can see your scars anyway. Your right to exist as a trans man is more important than their feelings, always. I can imagine, though, that a sibling would be concerned for their trans sibling that they had to do a coming out speech while they just wanted to enjoy a pool barbecue. However, in that case, sis would or should have called beforehand, explained the situation, and let OP decide on whether they wanted to come at all, not swim, or swim with or without a shirt. Yeah, I get your point, but the sister said it made her uncomfortable, and she was worried the in-laws would look at her differently, which means she was just worried for herself. Not the a-hole. You were right to call out that transphobic behavior. Didn't want her in-laws to look at her differently, makes it sound like she was saying she was ashamed to have a trans brother. I'm glad your parents stood up for you though. That was awesome of them. OP replies, I'm kinda glad too. They were really accepting as soon as I told them. Like, my dad was excited to have a son, lol. They're normally chill, even during a conflict, so for them to react this way, they would have to have been really ticked. There you go then. If your parents reacted that strongly to it, seems a clear indicator that they also thought she was the a-hole. Posted by user Azua Butter. Titled, Am I the a-hole for saying bad things about a disability in front of someone with that disability? My 26 female, boyfriend, 26 male, decided to throw a party with a good amount of his friends and family. We had been together at this point in time for 8 months. He spoke of his siblings often and positively, so I was excited to meet them. At the party, I met a couple of the last remaining friends of his that I haven't been introduced to, as well as his 24-year-old brother who is autistic, though I did not know at that time. I was talking to one of his friends that I'm not too familiar with, and she brought up a story about an autistic child who passed away a couple years ago as it was related to the protests going on. I then said that was tragic and that I hope that they come up with a way to do prenatal testing for autism so that people don't have to suffer with it in the future. My boyfriend's brother heard this conversation and came over to us, who, again, I did not know was autistic. He was very angry and called me a eugenicist in front of everyone and said that he hoped that prenatal testing never existed because of people like me. I felt embarrassed with this happening in front of everyone else and left. I later asked my boyfriend why he didn't tell me his brother had autism, because I wouldn't have said anything like that if I knew. He said he shouldn't have had to tell me because I shouldn't hold those beliefs at all. He said it was very disappointing knowing that I thought like that, and that I owed his brother an apology and a renunciation of my views. I disagreed, and after a little bit of squabbling, he just said, let's forget about the whole thing. The reason why I'm asking now is that I saw his brother yesterday, and he still won't talk to me for more than a few sentences, which is progress, but far too slow for my taste. So maybe I should apologize. Am I the a-hole for saying what I said? I think this is one of those deeply polarizing topics that's going to have many people inwardly and outwardly asking themselves about this very thing. And the reality is that a lot of people are very opinionated on this matter. I personally do think you're an a-hole for saying what you said. It's not something you discuss publicly at events like that. It's deeply inappropriate to do so. These are things that you keep to yourself, if you believe them. So yes, you are an a-hole for saying what you said, and I do think you should apologize. If you feel bad about saying something depending on who's in the room, there's a good chance you shouldn't say it at all. Not to mention the fact that you think the brother is too slow to forgive you for saying he should never have been born, and you haven't even apologized yet. I treat my pets with more respect and empathy than you treated your brother's boyfriend, OP. The person who needs to be asking for forgiveness here is you. You're the a-hole. I then said that was tragic and that I hope they come up with a way to do prenatal testing for autism so that people don't have to suffer with it in the future. So by that, did you mean that you hope prenatal testing for autism will give parents to be a heads up so they can have an abortion? Because yeah, that's probably something you don't want to say in front of someone with autism, or someone related to, or who has friends with autism. Or out loud, ever, under any circumstance. Someone else replies, I don't think the viewpoint is necessarily bad. I've seen people with severe autism, and they need lifelong care. It's a huge strain on a family, and I don't think it's wrong to want to opt out of that. That being said, the timing was absolutely inappropriate. Even if the brother wasn't there, they were talking about a tragedy of a child who died. That's not the time to say, too bad they couldn't have been aborted. It's absolutely tactless. Exactly. A get-together with strangers talking about a recently deceased child is the wrong time to have the conversation. As a society, we need to have these tough conversations. I think through these conversations, it becomes obvious that people don't feel prepared to care for a child with disabilities, particularly severe ones. We tend to not see disabilities unless they are obvious, so people aren't aware of how many people around them have an invisible disability. Removing the stigma is important. But it's also important to realize there is a major lack of resources out there. People are rightfully terrified of what would happen if they had a child with severe disabilities. What resources are out there? How do they even start to get help? Who will pay for this? In the US, the lack of resources, good resources, are a major problem. I taught special ed for 10 plus years. I had an autistic student who was over 6 feet tall as a freshman and would slam his fists and head into the locker or desk when he became overwhelmed. His sister hated him because she was robbed of her childhood. His dad left, and his mum was at the end of her rope trying to work and deal with him. The handful of good group homes and facilities had mile-long wait lists because once someone got in, they were usually there for life. It is not unreasonable for someone to look at a situation like this and say, nope, I do not want that. But parents don't actually get that choice. They discover the severity years down the road and they have to figure it out. They don't get a choice. Lastly, it's always easy to judge when you have no skin in the game. My phone is glitchy right now, so I can't look up the poll or study where people were asked about a hypothetical pregnancy that showed the child had Down syndrome and compared those answers to what people actually do when they find out the fetus has Down syndrome. When it's hypothetical, more people are willing to keep the pregnancy. When it really happens, something like 90% terminate. In my opinion, if you want to be pro-choice, then you have to trust people to make the choice they feel is right. Posted by user The Redneck Medic. Titled, Am I the a-hole for letting my wife talk herself into a hole while I knew the whole time that she was wrong? Recently, I've been having trouble sleeping. I only get around 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. I think it's because of stress from work, corona, and a ton of other stuff going on right now. My wife, on the other hand, is sleeping 10 hours a day. Because of this, I'm up when she's sleeping, and she is constantly telling me I'm making noise when I'm not. At first, she was texting me saying that I needed to turn the volume down on the TV or my phone, and I would. Soon, I figured that I shouldn't use electronics while she's sleeping and stopped, but she still kept texting me. I told her I had turned electronics off, and she said I was lying. A few days ago, she came into the living room yelling that I wasn't responding to her texts and that I needed to turn the volume on my phone down. I informed her that my phone had died and was currently charging. She accused me of gaslighting her even after I showed her the phone off and charging at less than 5% battery. Tonight, I started getting texts again saying I was listening to music on my phone too loud. I told her she was lying and that she couldn't hear anything. She started saying that I was an a-hole and I was gaslighting her and that she knew I was listening to music on my phone. I told her that I was indeed listening to music on my phone and I had it at full volume. I'm only saying that she couldn't hear it. She went on for probably 4 or 5 more texts before I sent her a pin of my location 4 miles away and said, I'm on a late night run through the park. You cannot hear my music. She says I'm the a-hole for letting her go on for so long without telling her how I knew she couldn't hear it and that I was only trying to embarrass her. I say that it was necessary for her to finally see the problem and stop. I'll leave it to you guys. Am I the a-hole? Yeah, this is a really weird one. I don't think you're the a-hole at all for this situation. That's a really odd problem going on with your wife, and I do hope she's okay. I hope this isn't the sudden onset of mental illness or anything. I would really hope not, but if that's the case, it sounds like she might need help. I wouldn't know where she's hearing these noises. So anyway, you're not the a-hole. But she is either being an a-hole here, or she is having auditory hallucinations. You should talk to her, and if she honestly was hearing stuff while you weren't even around, it may be time to go see a doctor. Yes, this. You're obviously not the a-hole, but from your other comments, it sounds like this is a big change in her behavior due to quarantine. And she's not normally an a-hole telling lies and freaking out like this either. I would be very concerned and try to get her to talk to the doctor. Stress can play tricks with our minds at times. She sounds really vulnerable right now. Do you have thin walls? Could the sound be coming from the neighbors? My thought exactly. We live in an apartment, and it's shocking how well sound can travel, especially at night when there's no ambient noise. We've heard the neighbor on the phone, or soft music from her apartment. I think Opie is handling it kind of obnoxiously, like the park thing was dumb and only going to make her angry, which he knew. Rather than just repeatedly accusing her of lying, maybe try and see what's going on, which might require a trip to the doctors. She repeatedly accuses him of gaslighting her, which is pretty serious. That's become my wife's favorite word whenever I say anything that goes against her perception of reality. Stop gaslighting me. To use another word, I think she is projecting her gaslighting onto me. In this case, clearly his wife is the one who should be accused of gaslighting here. That's what gaslighting is, unless her perception of reality is wrong. And obviously, she doesn't believe her perception is wrong because then it wouldn't be her perception. So as far as she knows, you are gaslighting her. I'm just curious how it comes to be that you're challenging her perception of reality so often that it's become a thing. Is she schizophrenic or in some other way prone to hallucinations? But that's just it. Her perception of reality is often wrong. But even with witnesses to prove it, she won't budge, but will instead conveniently dismiss it as gaslighting. It's her go-to word to basically say, I'm right, you're wrong, there's nothing you can say to change my opinion, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Opie's wife is the gaslighting one here, and yet she's accused her husband of it. Sorry, it just struck a familiar tone. Personally, I never use the term. I actually have grown to hate it, and in my experience, the one accusing is often the one who is guilty. Not the a-hole, and it sounds like the stress is getting to her in a different way. Hallucinating sounds is pretty common. I'd suggest you talk to her about seeking professional help for it, even if it's just for one session. I have some issues with paranoia, and hallucinating sounds is one of my more common symptoms. It feels super real to me, and the way I can calm myself down is by seeing the source of the sound to ensure that it's fake. I can see how that would be a lot harder when the source is another human who could easily start and stop the sounds if they heard you coming. Not the a-hole. She may be saying that you're gaslighting her, but she's the one gaslighting you. Her calling you the a-hole for letting her dig a hole is classic Darvo. Deny, accuse, reverse victim, and defender. The level of disdain on your wife's part is entirely unhealthy for your marriage. I'd suggest couples therapy, but she's already weaponizing therapy speak, gaslighting, to the point that I don't know that would be safe for you. What would you say if a female friend told you that her husband was doing to her what your wife has been doing to you? Posted by user Hedge Greenies, titled, Am I the a-hole for not telling my friend and his wife his son was sick so he wouldn't leave dinner early? Ever since my best friend got married, he hasn't been over so much. Then he had a baby a few months ago, and then the pandemic hit, and it was harder to see him. I finally got to invite him and his wife over for dinner because restrictions kind of lifted. I didn't really want his wife to come, but I didn't have a valid excuse for her to not come. But I absolutely hate babies, so I asked them to leave their son at home if they could. His wife didn't want to take her baby outside or something anyway, so she left him with the baby's grandma and told her to call if an emergency came up. Good. I could tell she was kind of sour about it, but honestly, I didn't really care. I made a lot for dinner. My friend left his phone on the counter in the kitchen for some reason, I guess, and I went in to get something and his phone went off. It was his grandma. I picked it up. For some reason, I thought if I let him pick it up and it really was an emergency, he would leave early. I know that's stupid, but whatever. I told Grandma he was in the bathroom, and she told me to tell them to come home ASAP. The baby was vomiting or whatever. After we were done eating, I took him aside and told him his grandma called, and that his baby was apparently vomiting. He got very mad at me. Like, fuming mad. He asked me why I hid it, why I lied, and honestly I have no clue. I just didn't want him to leave early. Who would eat all that food, you know? Plus, it had been so long since we'd gotten to hang out. Anyway, they both left, and he texted me this long thing about how the baby was super sick, and Grandma couldn't drive him, and she waited hours for them to come back so the baby could go to the ER. The baby isn't in critical condition or anything, so that's good at least. I feel kind of stupid about it because he's mad, but the baby's fine, and everything worked out, and I've apologized, but he still seems pretty mad. How big was my offense, actually? While it appears to be a troll, I'll take the bait. I'll say that's a disgusting and despicable action that you almost caused the death of a baby, regardless of the outcome here. You absolutely knew what was going on here, and you chose to keep that information from the parents, and that is despicable. You are a piece of trash, OP, and I hope you know that. You are the a-hole. What the hell? Grow up, and say goodbye to that friendship because you've destroyed it. Imagine putting a baby's health over your dinner party. Hope the dinner was worth it, OP. Sounds like it's the last one with your friend. Edit. I realized I wrote it wrong. I'm not going to fix it because it's making me laugh each time I see my ridiculous mistake. Yeah, but like, what if it's a dinner party where you have like a lot of food, you know? Like, I get maybe prioritizing a baby over a normal amount of food, but don't you think the volume of food here is really the key point? When you have a lot of food, what's the higher priority? A person with a stomach that's like the size of a walnut that's throwing up anyway? Or two adults who can actually eat the food? What about the food? You're the a-hole, and I suspect you must be a troll because no one is this socially maladroit. Posted by user Evil Toucher, titled, Am I the a-hole for touching strangers' bellies to teach them a lesson? When I was pregnant with my first child, lots of strangers would randomly pat my belly. I absolutely hated it because these people were literal strangers that ran into me when I was sitting on benches, in public transport, or grocery shopping. After a while, I started telling them off, but they would always get really offended. So my husband came up with a different solution. Either he or I, depending on if he was with me, would just start to touch the offender's belly in return. Usually, they were shocked, but got the hint. Some absolutely lost it and started screaming. Now, I just found out that I'm pregnant again, and I'm planning on doing the same thing again if people can't keep their bloody hands off me. My dad thinks I should be the bigger person and made me rethink my plan. But ultimately, I think they shouldn't touch strangers if they don't like to be touched themselves. What is it with people that just have this innate need to touch the belly of a pregnant person? Why do you think that's acceptable? Do you just shut off your brain and go like, oh my god, belly baby, gotta touch it now. Don't care if it makes people uncomfortable because it's my God-given right to touch a belly? And it's not even like this is a Karen situation, like this is a disgustingly common thing. I've not seen it myself, but I can't imagine being in that woman's position. I find it skin-crawlingly disgusting, like, don't touch me. Don't touch my child. What's wrong with you? No matter who you are, if I don't know you, don't touch me. Opie, you're not the a-hole, and I don't blame you. Not the a-hole, and I hope you follow it up by pretending to be thoroughly perplexed when someone gets annoyed about it. Is this not your preferred greeting? Ah, my apologies. I rubbed your belly anti-clockwise instead of clockwise. Here, let me try again. This is the best suggestion. I guffawed. I've never understood why anyone would want to rub a woman's belly if it wasn't their child in her womb. It's just weird. When I was pregnant with my daughter 11 years ago, I had people rubbing my belly, loudly commenting on it. Hell, one guy even argued with me on the sex of my daughter because I was carrying her high. Pregnant women aren't sideshows at the county fair to ogle. They're just women carrying on with life. Both times I was pregnant, I had people argue that I must have twins in me since I got so big. I was like, nope, just one. I checked. Not the a-hole. I've done this before too, and currently pregnant with my third. Thankfully, due to recent events, touching this time round hasn't been a problem. The one time I completely lost it, a stranger rubbed my belly and said, "Oh wow, aren't you huge?" I rubbed them back and said, "Oh wow, aren't you lumpy?" Needless to say, it didn't go down well. I don't regret it though. Yes, I almost always want to thank you for having the courage to do this. Do people not understand that this belly is still my belly? Entitled people don't care or understand that other people have bodily autonomy. They care more about fulfilling their own selfish wants and needs, no matter how inappropriate. Am I the a-hole? Wife 32 wants to get rid of our dog. I, 30, do not. So, my wife and I have been married for 3 years. Having grown up with dogs all her life, she insisted we get a puppy once we were married. We both work from home, so there was always someone in the house with her. I'd never have a dog before, but could see this was important to her, so said yes and got us a pup. My wife never really bonded with the dog as I did, and I'm the dog's favorite. I do the majority of walks, training, and playing with the dog. I think she expected a puppy to act like a full-grown dog and not need direction and training. We live near my in-laws, and they have asked to have the dog stay over quite often, as theirs recently died and they were missing having a pet around. The dog gets on well with them, so I allowed it. There didn't seem to be any issues with this. We now have a 2-year-old child, and my wife is pregnant with another baby. She has recently said she feels like she would be overwhelmed being on maternity leave for 15 months with a toddler, baby, and dog to look after, and wants her parents to take the dog permanently. They have joked about doing so ever since we got the dog, and I've always been clear they could only take it if I died. I do occasionally travel for work, maybe I'm away 5 days a month, so could see how it may be difficult on those days that I'm not around. But otherwise, I feel like it was her decision to get a dog, and it's not a decision you can lightly go back on, even if it would be staying in the wider family. I would miss having the dog around, but my wife thinks I'm being unfair to her, and to the children and dog. She feels she wouldn't be able to give any of them the attention they deserve if she had to manage them all, when the in-laws are ready and willing to take the dog. Ultimately, I think she regrets getting the dog and doesn't want to have to put up with the additional cleaning and responsibility that comes with one, particularly when she has what she sees as a win-win in terms of still seeing the dog several times a week through the in-laws, but having no other responsibilities. Am I the a-hole for wanting to keep the dog? Extra info: I work 5 days a week, my wife works 2. My child is in nursery 2 days a week, with my wife 1 day a week, and with my parents 2 days a week. I then have her on Saturdays, and we do family activities on Sundays. We have a fairly even chore split. I handle our land, cooking, ironing, and vacuum cleaning. She handles polishing, laundry, and bathroom/kitchen cleaning. I feel like a dog is a family member, and I feel like you've got to keep family around when it's in dog form because they're extra cute. To me, it feels like the wife is kind of just making an excuse to try and get rid of the dog and palm it off to the relatives, as he said, that she wouldn't have any other responsibilities and that's her main concern. Again, if it isn't the consequences of my actions. I wanted a dog, but I don't want the dog aspects of the dog, just the companionship. Opie, I don't think you're an a-hole for wanting to keep the dog. I feel like this is something you need to communicate with her better about, because obviously right now you aren't on the same level about it, but I do hope you come to a diplomatic solution with her. Opie, not the a-hole. If you only travel 5 days a month, that is a very small window of time that she has the dog and the kids. I swear the dog will be fine with less attention those days. Maybe the days you have traveling is when the pup could spend the night with the in-laws? That way she isn't overwhelmed and she can't say you left her with extra responsibility. It sounds like she might be a wee bit jealous the dog didn't bond with her as much as it did with you. That happened with my parents, and my mum kind of resented the dog. 5 days a month, every month, is a lot, and it doesn't sound like the wife gets any time off herself. I don't think Opie is the a-hole for wanting to keep the dog, but he needs to recognize that dealing with 2 kids and a dog is a lot. I think having joint custody with the in-laws when Opie is out of town is a good compromise. This is a great idea. Doggy grandparent staycation for 5 days a month. I used to drop my dog off at a parent's before work and collect him after work. Before the dog died, of course. Bonus for my parents to pamper me and the dog, and bonus for me for free dog sitters and food to take home. Also, cool to catch up with and keep them busy. If they're happy, I'm happy. Until the dog died. God, why do you have to keep putting that in there? Damn it. I knew I should have gotten an identical dog and kept pretending, like they did with my goldfish. 5 days a month is not a lot. Not for someone who got a dog expecting to care and own it for 24/7 until death. Wife is the a-hole. OP is not the a-hole. Don't get animals you can't care for. If a dog is so hard, God help that second child. No a-holes here. Of course you're not an a-hole for wanting to keep the dog, but I'm not sure she is either, based on the fact it seems to only be the parents she's wanting to give it to, i.e., she knows they are suitable and can still check on the dog. Her reasons are justified also. Perhaps a hard and difficult conversation is due. Yeah, she would be an a-hole if she wanted to abandon the dog, but if her parents would be great dog owners, she isn't an a-hole for suggesting this. It's a decision she and OP have to make together, but I don't think it's wrong of her to bring up the idea. It honestly just seems like she knows her boundaries and wants the best for the dog. The in-laws could always just take the dog for the time she is on maternity leave, or come over often to help. No a-holes here. Right? She's a woman in her 30s who has grown up with dogs, but OP reduced her to the likes of an inexperienced, jealous kid who regrets getting a dog because she's lazy, irresponsible, and mad that the dog doesn't love her as much as it loves him. In the second and last paragraph, that is. I want to say no a-holes here too, but I don't like his tone. Info. Why is she having to manage them all? What are you doing to help with the kids? OP replies, probably poor phrasing, sorry. Obviously I'm doing nothing for the unborn one at the moment, but for my 2-year-old I do plenty. I have her every Saturday for daddy-child days while my wife does her hobby. I do all the meals when I'm in the house, and we split the bath time and bedtime routines. Info. Do you both work equal amounts? You said you do all the meals when you're home. Does your wife do all the cleaning and laundry? She gets Saturdays off. What days do you take off? No, I work 5 days a week. My wife works 2. My child is in nursery 2 days a week, with my wife 1 day a week, and with my parents 1 day a week. I then have her on Saturdays, and we do family activities on Sundays. We have a fairly even chore split. I handle our land, cooking, ironing, and vacuum cleaning. She handles polishing, laundry, and bathroom/kitchen cleaning. Hold the phone. If I'm reading this correctly, your wife is only fully responsible with no assistance for the child and dog for 1 day of the whole week, and can't even handle that? Jesus! Not the a-hole in any way. Keep your dog. Posted by user Attention to Detail. Titled, Am I the a-hole for being concerned with my boyfriend's obsession with apples? So my boyfriend takes the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, very, very serious. He usually has a minimum of 3 apples a day. The first one he eats in the car on the way to work. He tells me just how he throws the apple core out of the window into grass, which is a bit douchey for littering in my opinion, but whatever. I don't think that's littering, that's natural, it's just going to be eaten by the grass. The second, he usually eats before or after lunch. Then the third is before he brushes his teeth at night. Not gonna lie, I don't think this is healthy. I mean, it's bad to have things in excess, right? I understand that apples are good for you, but this is a tad bit too far, not to mention it can become kind of expensive and takes up a significant amount of space in the fridge. He wants his apples cold and crispy. So it was my turn to get groceries. The store was a complete clusterfuck, and I was stressed trying to social distance, and I completely forgot to get the apples, as well as some other things too. It was not malicious at all, and I only realized this once we got home and unpacked the food. He starts losing his crap, that he's only got enough apples to last till the end of the day, and he needs it for his drive to work tomorrow. I said, "You need it? What's going to happen if you don't have a morning apple?" He claims that it just gets his day going, that eating the apple calms his mind down and eases stress. I told him that this makes me a bit concerned, and that there's other healthier ways of coping, and offered to find a therapist for him. That seems like a bit much, OP. Well, he wasn't happy with that. He visibly got stressed out and just hopped in the car. I suppose he went to the grocery store because he came back with a couple of bags of apples, but he locked himself in the basement and hasn't come out since. What have I done wrong in this situation? I'm just concerned for him. This reads like a fever dream. This man with bags of apples locking himself in my basement is my sleep paralysis demon. His energy scares me, but he's truly a man dedicated, and I can respect that. I think he's using it like other people use a cup of coffee in the morning, and we know how some people get when they can't have their coffee, they can't have their cigarettes. It's just not good to keep them away from their coping mechanisms. I don't think a therapist is the right option in this one here. I think you let the man have his apples. They're very good for you. Apples taste good, and you can't blame him for wanting more apples. I mean, man's gotta get what he gotta get. OP, you're an a-hole for forgetting his apples. How dare you? How dare you? You're an a-hole. I don't know. It's a silly situation. You're the a-hole. Maybe he has an addiction to eating apples, but it sounds like a very healthy addiction. We all have our vices, and he chose something that's good for him. You're the a-hole for discouraging that and making him feel like something is wrong with him for enjoying apples every day. By the way, this is the most bizarre Am I the a-hole I've read in a long time. I keep imagining him in the basement munching angrily on apples. Lol. I imagine him caressing them and whispering, "I won't let you take them away from me. I won't let her take you away from me, apples." Wolf Caroling reckons, "You literally cannot get addicted to apples. They aren't Vicodin. I'm autistic and like to eat the same thing day after day. There's nothing wrong or bad about it. I wish I wanted apples instead of caramel bars." Hey, no offense, but people's addictions work in different ways. There's no drugs and gambling, but you can get addicted to that. No reason someone else couldn't get addicted to apples. It's just weird as hell. You're the a-hole. 1 million people have this exact relationship with coffee, and we don't judge them. Apples are healthier and more beneficial than coffee, though he should stop being a trash panda and throwing the cause out the window. They'll attract wildlife to the road corridor, which doesn't end well for the wildlife. I didn't think of that. If my wife came home without the coffee, I wouldn't throw a fit. Supermarkets are crazy right now. I'd just get a takeaway coffee in a drive-thru, or something. The wife wasn't hostile or disrespectful. You're the a-hole, but I'm super curious what a more healthy way to relieve stress is other than eating a dang apple. Also, do you realize we're supposed to eat lots of fruits and veggies a day? I wish I could relieve stress with a goddamn apple instead of my current vices. Can you imagine seeking help for that? Apples Anonymous, the new AA. Hi, I'm OP, and I like apples. It's a problem. I wake up in a cold sweat thinking of the apples in the pig's mouth during a hog roast. When I'm awake, it's so hard to avoid temptation. Apple computers, brochures for the Big Apple, the staff at McDonald's asking if I'd like to add an apple pie for just 49 cents. Then there's those Fruckers with them Adam apples. Seriously, most of us would kill to have eating 3 apples a day be our unhealthiest trait. Posted by user, deleted. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for publicly shaming my ex-girlfriend who is an aspiring Instagram model?" I have a 17-year-old daughter. I'm not her bio dad, but I've been in her life since she was 4 and I married her mum. We divorced when she was 13, and unfortunately, her mother has some mental issues she refuses to treat, so I took full custody. I recently dated a woman who was probably too young for me, 25, and she was an Instagram model, though not very successful. My daughter did a little child modeling and has had a lot of success on Instagram. There were times I felt like my girlfriend was using my daughter for Instagram likes, and she seemed jealous of her. Besides that, they got along alright. I broke up with my girlfriend 2 months ago after the stupidest fight. My daughter said something about college, and my girlfriend wanted to know if I was still going to pay for her college despite the Instagram money. Technically, she's made enough to pay for college, but I intend to pay for her education, and she can use that money for her future. This upset my girlfriend for some reason, and she was whining about how no one paid her for school, and she has so much debt, and she needs her Instagram career to take off. My daughter said, maybe you should get a day job, which maybe was a little bitchy, but she's not wrong. And my girlfriend said maybe you should get some real parents. I just saw red. I kicked her out that night, and that was the end of our relationship. Well, today I saw a picture she posted on damn Instagram of the 3 of us as a throwback Thursday. I feel like she's just using my daughter's name to get attention, so I commented that I would like all my pictures of my underage daughter removed from her account, and I included what she said. I guess she got some hate because she left me a voicemail crying. Oh my god, she said that to the daughter. That's so heartless. She's a piece of crap for saying that. Oh my, she has no place to say that. And the daughter wasn't out of line for telling her to get a day job. Everyone would tell her to get a day job. Being an Instagram model is not a full-time career. It is not a day job. It's just a hobby until it turns into a career. If you want to call influencers a career. Not many of them get to that level. I don't blame OP for his actions afterwards. I'd be pretty mad if I was him in this situation, so go off, sis. Full Metal Pine Tree says, I was prepared and even keen on thrashing you. But holy crap, who says something like that to a child? And who acts like that because a father wants to pay for the education of his child? Not the a-hole. Teach that immature influencer a lesson. Kinda off topic. I also hope you learned your lesson. While I'm all down for kinky stuff and free love, having a romantic relationship with a huge age gap, no idea how old you are, just gonna assume based on my idea of maturity age, can be dangerous and doomed to fail if you're in a different stages of maturity and or livelihood. That difference is, in my opinion, already given by the simple fact that you not only have a daughter, but that she is a minor and your now ex-girlfriend is barely older than her. Yeah, 8 years is generally quite a bit, but after that story, are we really going to judge her to have the maturity of a 25-year-old? Said the 22-year-old male student, of course. Hey, don't call me out. ETA, the undergrad person and pictures online thing. You were definitely right in demanding her to take them offline. Don't know where you live, but at least here in Germany, I'm pretty sure every lawyer would agree with that. Not the a-hole. Pro tip, don't date a chick that's closer to your daughter's age than your own age. Glad you dodged a bullet. She was a major a-hole. While I generally agree with your assessment, I would say that I hope most 25-year-olds would be way more mature than the girl OP dated. Most mature 25-year-olds are not trying to date someone a decade or more their senior. Not the a-hole. Good on you for protecting your daughter and not letting your ex monetize your images after the breakup. Posted by user Glasswatcher, titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my stepdaughter she acts like a tramp?" My stepdaughter is 20 and recently single. She always has been a social butterfly, to put it nicely. Her boyfriend left her over cheating rumors, which I wouldn't doubt for a second. My husband and I don't share the same views, and she's his little girl, which is fair enough. But I feel like she's too out there. She was only single for 2 weeks before hanging out with a new guy, and I spoke to my husband about this, and he told me to stay out of it and not say anything. I got angry at this, as I liked her ex, and I said she's become a tramp ever since she turned 18. My husband is ticked I said this. Am I the a-hole, or is he overreacting? Look, obviously the word is not tramp, it's someone who sleeps around a lot. And I don't know if it's the mum's place to be calling her out like that. I feel like she's an a-hole for straight up attacking her like that, although I can see where she's coming from. I know a lot of people are very opinionated on these matters. Me personally, I think leave her to her own devices for a little bit. Tell her, maybe we slow this one down, chief. I don't think attacking her for her character straight away, just right out the gate, don't think that's going to solve much. I think if we slowly ease into this talk, because she's 18 years old, she's going in and out of breakups, she's obviously not doing well emotionally, I wouldn't think. The mum, in my mind, took it too far by just attacking her straight away, and I believe the husband is right for being pissed off. Opie, you're the a-hole. For multiple reasons. 1, she's an adult and can do what she likes. You don't get to criticize her for choosing to date after a breakup. 2, you went to your husband and complained, as if he was going to tell her to change? What the hell? How did you think the conversation, "Hey darling, I think your daughter is too promiscuous and needs to change as a person," was going to go down? Obviously he was going to be upset with you. 3, calling her a tramp, obviously a different word, is disgusting. A woman is allowed to enjoy sex without being criticized. If it was a stepson instead, would you still criticize him for finding a new partner? Shaming is a gross result of a misogynistic society. And if you really cared about your stepdaughter, you would be empowering her to make her own choices and maybe offer advice about being safe. That's it. Instead, you went to her father to attack her for how she chooses to live her life, and that makes you the a-hole. All of this. Shaming is awful, and especially when it's your stepdaughter. She should be empowering her and empathetic to the fact that she has a broken heart, probably. I'm a man, but agree with you. Why is a woman who has sex with many men called a huh, but a man who has sex with many women is applauded? It's ridiculous. People should just be allowed to live how they want, as long as they're not hurting anyone. I'ma speak for myself. It's not even applauded back home. It's kind of even looked down on for anyone to sleep around that much. Not gonna lie. I feel like it's more an American stereotype that people are cool with it, because it's definitely not completely socially acceptable in my groups in Australia. You're the a-hole. Sounds like you're a bit of prude, to be honest. As long as everything is safe and consensual, it isn't hurting anyone if she sleeps with the entire Marine Corps. Mind your business and focus on your own sex life, or lack thereof. Posted by user TBI Journal Girl, titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend to get rid of her journal?" My 34 male girlfriend, 25 female, has a traumatic brain injury, TBI, that she got when she was 20 from a horse accident. Her skull was fractured in 2 places, she spent time in the hospital and physical therapy, and months away from work. It was a long road, but she is a completely different person now. You can't even tell anything is wrong with her, except for a scar above her eyebrow. That being said, the accident left her with a TBI nonetheless. She's been left with a multitude of issues to work through that her neurologist said may get better with time or not. One of her many issues is memory loss. She had a lot of tough times because of this: friends, family, and when she went back to work. Something she found that worked for her was carrying a small journal with her at all times. It started when she went back to work in the vet field and had to figure out how to remember things the doctors were telling her. She works ER, so it's quite hectic and stressful at times, and she almost quit before deciding to write everything down. And when I say everything, I mean it. Now that she has that journal, she carries it everywhere, even outside of work. We're joining friends at a bar? Journal. Dinner with parents? Journal. One of our friends states something? Down in the journal. And she holds on to them. So she has tons of little books with friends and family's info, work stuff, you know. I finally asked her to leave the journals to work, as it's embarrassing to be seen with her constantly writing things down people say to us. She'd called me an a-hole and said she couldn't believe I would ask her to do that. Am I the a-hole? It's just with friends, not work. How can the OP write this entire story about her traumatic brain injury and then be like, you know what, I don't like that she's remembering stuff. This is her way to remember everything. Gah, disgusts me, it's embarrassing. Who just writes everything down so they can remember it? Because their own brain can't remember it. What are you, an idiot? Just get over the TBI, what are you doing? Surely it could be a little bit unbelievable, but you can always attribute malice to something that could easily just be stupidity, ignorance. I'm just going to say that OP is extremely ignorant, because that's just a stupid request. I wouldn't stay with this man if I was the girlfriend with the TBI. I would run so fast from that relationship, and I wouldn't even put it down in my journal so I could forget him. You're the a-hole. Who are you to say how much her memory suffers? This journaling hurts no one, and your embarrassment is completely apathetic to what happened to her. Let her cope how she chooses. This is completely benign. I'm in awe how he acknowledges her TBI and then continues to basically state, look, I get that she has to carry her brain outside of her body in the form of her journals, but I'd rather have her feeling scared and with memory loss about what is literally going on every minute of her life than be seen with someone with a booklet. OP, you're the a-hole, what the hell? She tries to be less dependent on the people around her. I would struggle to note everything down. She adapted quickly, working in emergency response nonetheless. Shame on you. I like how he says it's just with friends, as though there's no need for her to want to remember stuff that's going on with her friends. A friend forgetting stuff that you've told them, or important events, can be a big source of conflict in a relationship. As with most people, it's an indicator that they don't care. She probably knows this, and may even have run into issues in the past. It's like how people get frustrated repeating stuff to people with hearing loss, even if they know what they've been through. Also, even if they are understanding, it fudging sucks. Like, your friend is going through something, or made an internal joke, and you can't remember it. Our relationships are based on what we've gone through together, and how well you know the other person. Like, if you can't remember it, then it makes things almost impossible. Also, you're the a-hole OP. You're the a-hole, a huge gaping a-hole. If you're embarrassed, you don't deserve her. She needs this to function. Probably no one cares. It stands out, but like really? It's such a small thing. And a small thing that makes daily life so much easier for her. Also, my cousin had a TBI 15 plus years ago and does the same thing. He still journals everything. He probably always will. If you're not prepared to deal with that for the rest of your life, then she doesn't need you dragging her down. Yeah, how in the hell could he be embarrassed over her journal? I think she sounds like a strong woman who does her best, who wants to live life to its fullest and enjoy times with others by remembering it. To phrase it bluntly, OP is telling his girlfriend that the memories they create as a couple are less important than his image. For that, he's honestly one of the worst boyfriends I've ever seen featured here. I've read about financial abuse, guys who steal their girlfriends' phones to prevent them from having a social life, just loads of awful people, but even entertaining the idea that her memories are less than his image is honestly one of the most blatant forms of dehumanization I've had the displeasure of reading. Posted by user Hide From My Wife Burner, titled, "Am I the a-hole for calling my wife a do-nothing tramp when I do everything in the house? We are a one-income family and I make all the money. I work and she stays home with the kids. Every day I come home to a trashed house. My wife claims that she cleans, but the house is filthy every day. I do all the dishes, do all the laundry, take out the trash, do all the cooking, etc., etc. I don't know what the hell is wrong with her, but she flat out refuses to do almost anything. She doesn't even do anything with the kids when she's home all day. They just watch Disney Plus or Netflix. It is too hot for her to go outside. I'm just fudging sick of being responsible for every little thing. It didn't used to be this way. She has slowly regressed over a period of 3 to 4 years. Everything came to a head this morning when I told her I can't do it all the time and she needs to stop leeching off me. I told her to get her crap together or get out of the house that I pay for. She lost her mind over this and we were yelling back and forth. She asks why I want a divorce, and I said no one in their right mind wants to be married to a do-nothing tramp like her. Am I the a-hole? I think you guys are just both being very nasty in this situation, and I do think either you guys sort this problem out or you just get divorced. If you've been holding this anger for 3 to 4 years, figure it out. You know your wife better than everyone here. I understand you venting, but there really only is so much advice that can help you before action is all you've got left. So, you're the a-hole, but she's an a-hole as well. You guys need to sort yourselves out. Everyone sucks here. I'm not sure what your desired outcome is, but the way you handled it isn't likely to accomplish much. Calling someone a do-nothing tramp isn't likely to accomplish much besides breed resentment and get you guys to hate each other. I think it's pretty clear that it's too late for that. OP already resents and hates his ex. The only reason to stay civil is because of the children. Everyone sucks here, dude. If she won't get help, start divorce proceedings or get couples counseling. Those are your options. It sounds like you two got into an abusive spiral. No matter who is most wrong, this kind of environment isn't good for you, your kids, or even your wife. End the cycle before it gets worse, and from your comments, it sounds like outside intervention is necessary. Alright, and I think that's where we're going to leave today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed the content today. If you guys loved watching it as much as I loved making it, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel already if you haven't. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below, maybe like the video, who knows. I'd also like to take this time to thank my awesome Patreon and channel members. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably be homeless on the streets of Ireland, crying, Irish dancing all over town. It would just be a mess. But no, for real, you guys are up on the screen now. Thank each and every one of you guys. And if you personally want to join the club yourself, there are links down in the description below. There's also the join button next to the subscribe button. Small monthly fee, but hey, it goes a long way to help me create more awesome content. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you do have a lovely day, night, sleep, evening, day at work, day at school, whatever you're up to. I hope you keep awesome today. You're looking amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.